Chapter 1, The Hidden Uchihas. The year was Konoha 47. The Third Shinobi World War was nearing its end. Across the 5 great nations, battlefields that had once roared with fire and blood were slowly falling silent. The cries of shinobi, the clash of steel, and the roar of jutsu were fading into distant echoes. 2 years remained before Minato Namikaze would ascend as the 4th Hokage. 3 years remained before the 9 Tails would descend upon Konoha, bringing with it a night of tragedy and the birth of Naruto Uzumaki. In the village, a 3-year-old child named Itachi Uchiha was already showing signs of brilliance. 7-year-old Shisui Uchiha had begun to earn whispers of admiration. The future seemed fixed. History appeared inevitable, or so the world believed. Far from the land of fire, near the eastern coast of the land of tea, there existed a place no map recorded and no shinobi could find. A vast mountain range stood hidden beneath an immense ceiling barrier. From the outside, there was nothing. No peaks, no forests, no life. Even chakra itself seemed absent. Sensor-type ninja would pass by without a second thought, their instincts guiding them away as if the land itself rejected observation. Yet beyond the barrier lay a hidden sanctuary. Clear rivers wound through lush valleys. Ancient trees stretched toward the sky, their leaves whispering in the wind. Fields of flowers painted the mountainsides in vibrant colors. Training grounds, carefully maintained, dotted the landscape. 5 houses stood apart from one another, each separated by kilometers of land. Each house belonged to a member of the Uchiha clan. 5 Uchihas. 5 ordinary chunin who had quietly disappeared from the village years ago. To the outside world, they were long dead. Only they knew the truth. Inside one of the houses, a middle-aged man with long black hair slowly opened his eyes from meditation. His name was Shun Uchiha. He frowned. Then, ding, asterisk. The sound was sharp, metallic, unnatural. It did not come from outside. It echoed directly inside his mind. Shun's body reacted instantly. Whoosh! He vanished from his seat and reappeared in the courtyard. A black blade slid into his hand from a concealed sealing scroll. His eyes turned crimson. 3 tomo spun into existence. His Sharingan activated. His gaze swept across everything. The trees, the stones, the wind, even the smallest disturbance would not escape him. Nothing. At the same moment, 4 other figures reacted across the mountain. To the north, Ren Uchiha stepped out of his house, his short hair swaying as his eyes ignited with Sharingan. To the west, Kaian Uchiha appeared atop a cliff, his expression sharp and calculating. To the south, Daichi Uchiha emerged from a training ground, his massive frame radiating quiet strength. At the center, Akira Uchiha stood calmly, his presence the most composed, and perhaps the most dangerous. Boom! 5 chakra signatures flared simultaneously. Each one powerful, each one controlled, each one unmistakably Uchiha. They appeared outside their homes in an instant. Weapons drawn, Sharingan activated. Their senses expanded, covering every inch of the hidden mountain. The barrier remained intact. No intrusion, no disturbance, no foreign chakra. The air itself seemed frozen. Akira's voice echoed through their communication technique. Shun, what happened? Shun's grip tightened on his sword. I heard something. Ren frowned. What kind of something? Shun hesitated. It wasn't a voice. Kaian narrowed his eyes. Then what? Shun exhaled slowly. A sound. A ding. Silence followed. Daichi's expression darkened. You're saying something bypassed the barrier. Akira's gaze sharpened. And reached directly into your mind. Shun nodded slightly. I couldn't trace it. Ren's voice grew tense. That's impossible. Kaian spoke quietly. Nothing should be able to bypass all 5 of us. Akira didn't respond immediately. His Sharingan spun slowly as he scanned the surroundings again. Still nothing. No chakra fluctuations. No distortions. No signs of genjutsu. Nothing. Then, ding, asterisk. The sound echoed again. Clear, sharp, unmistakable. This time, all 5 of them heard it. Their expressions changed instantly. Ren's eyes widened. Daichi clenched his fists. Kaian's breathing slowed, his mind racing. Akira's calm facade cracked ever so slightly. And Shun felt something he hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. Because whatever had just reached them was not something that belonged to the ninja world. And for the first time since they had hidden themselves away, the 5 Uchihas realized they were no longer alone. Chapter 2, The System. The 5 Uchihas remained on high alert. Their Sharingan continued scanning every corner of the hidden mountain. Nothing. No chakra. No enemy. No illusion. Only the strange silence. Then, a translucent blue screen appeared before each of them. It floated in the air, unaffected by the wind. Words slowly formed across its surface. Congratulations. You have become a user of the dungeon leveling system. Ren blinked. What? Daichi frowned. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Akira reached out to touch the screen, but his hand passed straight through it. Kyan narrowed his eyes. It doesn't seem to be a genjutsu. Shun also looked at the blue screen before him. However, unlike the others, his message was slightly different. Congratulations. You have become the host of the dungeon leveling system. Only one word had changed. User. Host. Shun's pupils contracted. So, it finally came. His expression remained calm, but waves surged through his heart. 20 years ago, he had been reborn into the Naruto world. At the age of 7, the memories of his previous life had awakened without warning. At the same time, his Sharingan had directly awakened to the two-tomo stage. Even he had been shocked. A 7-year-old awakening a fully matured two-tomo Sharingan without any known trigger was simply impossible according to the Uchiha clan's history. Fortunately, no one had witnessed it. From that day onward, Shun made a decision. He would remain hidden. He never made any friends. Except for the other 4. Because the 5 of them were the same kind of people. They hid themselves. They concealed their true strength. They avoided attention. Even after years of companionship, his 4 companions never knew that he had awakened his Sharingan so early. Nor did they know that he was a reincarnated soul from another world. That secret had remained buried for 20 years. But there were secrets even deeper than that. 2 years earlier, when the Third Shinobi World War had reached its bloodiest stage, Kyan had gathered the 5 of them. I have an idea, he had said. The war is swallowing countless Chunin every day. We're nothing more than ordinary Chunin in Konoha's records. If 5 more names are added to the casualty list, no one will question it. Silence had filled the room. Then Kyan continued, we fake our deaths. We disappear from the ninja world forever. To his surprise, no one objected. Ren was the first to nod. I'm tired of fighting for people who don't even know our names. Daichi laughed. I was hoping someone would suggest it. Akira smiled faintly. A peaceful life. Doesn't sound bad. Finally, Shun nodded as well. I agree. Soon afterward, they carefully planned everything. Using the chaos of the battlefield, they created convincing evidence of their deaths. Burned corpses, destroyed equipment, blood-stained battlefield reports. But it was on that battlefield that everything truly changed. Thrown into the heart of war, the 5 of them had no choice but to rely on each other completely. They guarded each other's backs. They fought side by side against overwhelming enemies. And slowly, they began to reveal their secrets. One by one, truths they had hidden from the world. Even from their own clan. In the midst of life and death, their Sharingan evolved. Pain, loss, desperation. Each of them awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. 5 Mangekyo. 5 hidden monsters. Yet none of it was ever discovered. Because they covered for each other. Protected each other. Concealed each other's power. That was one of the biggest reasons why Konoha, and even the Uchiha clan, never realized the truth. They believed 5 ordinary Chunin had died. In reality, 5 awakened Mangekyo users had vanished from the world. By the time the war settled, their names were nothing more than forgotten entries among Konoha's countless casualties. No one investigated. No one mourned for long. The world simply moved on. Using the savings they had accumulated over years of missions, the 5 secretly purchased this remote mountain range near the land of Tea. Together, they spent months constructing an enormous sealing barrier capable of hiding the entire region. Since then, they had lived peacefully, training, researching ninjutsu, and enjoying a quiet life far away from the endless conflicts of the shinobi world. But today, that peaceful life had been interrupted. 5 pairs of crimson eyes stared silently at the mysterious blue screens floating before them. No one knew who had created them. No one knew why they had appeared. Only Shun understood one thing. This mysterious system might become the greatest turning point of his second life. Chapter 3, A Secret from Another World. The silence lasted for several minutes. None of the 5 Uchihas spoke. Their eyes remained fixed on the translucent blue screens floating before them. Finally, Shun took a slow breath. There is something I know. The other 4 immediately turned toward him. Akira spoke first. You know what this is? Shun nodded slightly. I might. But before I explain, I need all of you to promise me something. His unusually serious tone caused everyone to become attentive. Don't ask me where I learned this. At least, not right now. I can't explain it. It's far too complicated. And even if I tried, you probably wouldn't believe me. The 4 exchanged glances. For over 20 years, they had trusted one another with their lives. If Shun said he couldn't explain, then there had to be a reason. Kyan was the first to nod. Fine. When you're ready, you'll tell us. Ren shrugged. Everyone has secrets. Daichi laughed. We all do. Akira looked into Shun's eyes for several seconds before speaking. We won't ask. Shun smiled faintly. Thank you. He looked back at the blue screen. What you're seeing is called a system. The four frowned. A system. Ren repeated. Shun nodded. You can think of it as an existence beyond ordinary understanding. It grants abilities, missions, rewards, and opportunities that normally shouldn't exist. Daichi scratched his head. So, like a legendary ninja tool. Shun shook his head. No, it is much greater than that. It doesn't rely on chakra. It doesn't seem to be ninjutsu, genjutsu, or fuinjutsu. It follows its own rules. Kyan folded his arms. And this one is called the dungeon leveling system. Exactly. Shun nodded. If the name is accurate, then it probably allows its users to become stronger by entering dungeons, completing missions, defeating enemies, and earning rewards. Ren blinked. Dungeons. There are no dungeons in the ninja world. Not yet, Shun answered thoughtfully. Or perhaps, they haven't appeared yet. Those words caused everyone's expression to become serious. If mysterious places capable of producing powerful rewards suddenly appeared throughout the world, the entire shinobi world would be thrown into chaos. Akira spoke calmly. Host. He looked directly at Shun. Your message was different. Shun wasn't surprised. You noticed. Akira nodded. While everyone else's screen said, user, yours said, host. So what does that mean? Shun remained silent for a moment. I don't know, but if I had to guess, the host is probably the main owner of the system. The rest of you are users connected to it. The four slowly digested his words. Another heavy silence fell over the courtyard. Then, as if responding to their conversation, ding, asterisk. The blue screens shimmered. New words slowly appeared before all five of them. Welcome to the dungeon leveling system. Initializing. Please wait. Chapter 4, The System Spirit. Just as the words, initializing. Please wait, faded from the blue screens. Poof. Asterisk. A puff of white smoke appeared before the five Uchihas. Out of it stepped a creature that made everyone freeze. It was a husky. A black and white husky. Dressed in a perfectly tailored black business suit. It even wore a tiny red tie and carried a leather briefcase under one paw. The husky cleared its throat and adjusted its tie with a serious expression. All right, good. My host already explained most of it. That saves me a lot of talking. I hate talking. The five Uchihas stared silently at the bizarre creature. The husky opened its briefcase, pulled out a stack of papers, and began flipping through them while speaking. You can call me the system spirit. Or just, hey you, dog. I don't really care. My job is simple. I explain things. I complain. And I leave. It snapped its paw. A blue screen appeared behind it. Anyway. Dungeons. That's your life now. Inside dungeons, monsters. You kill monsters. You get experience. You level up. It paused, then added lazily. Pretty basic stuff. The stronger the monster, the more experience you get. Level up enough, you get stronger. Simple math. When you clear a dungeon, you get rewards. Gold coins. The husky raised one paw. Gold coins are important. Very important. You use them in the shop. And yes, before you ask, you can buy almost anything. Weapons. Armor. Skills. Medicine. Random weird stuff you probably shouldn't touch. Daichi's eyes lit up instantly. So we can buy anything if we have enough coins. The husky looked at him. Almost. Don't get greedy. Some things are locked. Because you're weak. Daichi froze. Hey. Kyan stepped forward. What happens if we die inside a dungeon? The husky shrugged. In normal dungeons, you die, you lose one level. Then you pop back out. Like nothing happened. Ren blinked. That's it. Yep. Unless you're unlucky. Or stupid. Or both. Ren slowly lowered his hand. I feel attacked. The husky ignored him. Oh, and there are special dungeons. It paused. Then waved its paw dismissively. But your levels are too low. So forget about them. Seriously. Don't even think about it. You'll just get flattened. The five Uchihas went silent. That, somehow sounded worse than before. Then the husky turned toward Shun. Oh, host. You said something earlier. Host is the main owner of the system. It shook its head. Nope. Wrong. For me, host and users are the same. No special treatment. Except one thing. It pointed at Shun. You can see me anytime. And talk to me. Unfortunately. Shun raised an eyebrow. Unfortunately. The husky sighed. Yeah, more work for me. Ren immediately raised his hand. Wait, aren't we all seeing you right now? And talking to you. The husky looked at the four of them. Then sighed again. You four are weird. Normally, only the host can see me. But here you are. Congratulations. You broke something. Ren blinked. We broke something. Probably. Not my problem. The husky flipped through its papers again. Then froze. Oh no. It stared at the stack. Then at the 5 Uchihas. Then back at the stack. I forgot. I still have work. A lot of work. Too much work. Why is there always work? It started stuffing papers back into its briefcase in a panic. There are reports. So many reports. Who even writes these things? I don't even read them. I just stamp them. Daichi whispered. Is this thing okay? Akira replied calmly. I don't think it ever was. Ren couldn't help but mutter. Even a system has office problems. The husky looked at him with dead eyes. You have no idea. I haven't slept in 300 years. Everyone froze. What? The husky snapped its briefcase shut. Anyway, I'm leaving. Figure things out yourselves. Don't die. Or do. I'll still have paperwork. Poof. Asterisk. Another cloud of white smoke appeared. The system spirit vanished. Only the 5 Uchihas and the glowing blue system screens remained in the silent courtyard. And for some reason, everyone felt slightly more worried than before. Chapter 5, The First Goal. The courtyard fell silent once again after the system spirit disappeared. The 5 Uchihas looked at one another. Finally, Daichi scratched his head. So, what's next? Ren gave a small shrug. What else? We enter dungeons. We fight monsters. We level up. And we become stronger. His tone was calm, not excited. There was no thrill in his voice. Only practicality. Akira, however, remained serious. What about our research projects? He looked at the others. And our Eternal Eye project. Our Mangekyo Sharingan is getting weaker every year. If this continues, we'll eventually lose our eyesight. The atmosphere shifted immediately. This wasn't something they could ignore. For the past 2 years, the 5 of them had devoted themselves to finding a solution, one that didn't involve sacrificing another Uchiha. They had seen enough of that kind of cruelty. They refused to repeat it. Because they all knew the truth. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan could only be achieved by transplanting the eyes of a close blood relative, usually a sibling, into one's own. Only then would the ocular patterns fuse, removing the blindness caused by overuse. But that path was impossible for them. They were orphans. As long as they could remember, they had no family. No siblings. No one whose eyes they could take, even if they were willing to. Which they weren't. So that path had never been an option. Yet despite all their efforts, they had reached their limit. Shun spoke calmly. We've already hit a bottleneck. He looked directly at Akira. You're the only one who refuses to accept it. Akira didn't respond. Shun raised his hand, summoning the blue interface again. Look carefully at the system shop. The others opened their own interfaces. Countless items appeared before them. Weapons, techniques, materials, knowledge. Then Shun found what he was looking for. There, the others followed his gaze. Their expressions changed. Universal Advanced Cloning Method of Body Organs 99% Success Rate. Price, 1,000 gold coins. Description, a perfected biological technique that allows the safe cloning of body organs, including eyes, with an extremely high success rate. Silence filled the courtyard. Daichi blinked slowly. So we don't have to take someone else's eyes. Kyan nodded. Yeah, no more of that. Ren exhaled quietly. Our biggest problem finally has a solution. Shun closed the interface. So our priority is clear. We stop forcing progress where we've already reached our limit. We clear dungeons. We earn gold coins. And we buy this. The others nodded. For the first time in years, there was a path forward that didn't involve sacrifice. Kyan looked toward the distant mountains beyond the barrier. His expression was calm, but firm. So, we're going back to fighting. He paused briefly. But not like before. His voice grew colder. The war wasn't about justice. It was about greed. The other 4 great villages pushed it forward. And Konoha. He let out a quiet breath. Konoha wasn't innocent either. Hiruzen, Danzo, and the rest of the leadership. They stopped being shinobi a long time ago. They became politicians. No one argued. They had seen it firsthand. They had lived through it. Ren crossed his arms. We're not killing for them anymore. We're not killing without reason. Akira nodded. This time, we choose our own path. Daichi gave a small grin. And if monsters are the enemy, then that's simple enough. Shun looked ahead. Then it's settled. We grow stronger. On our own terms. For the first time since leaving the battlefield. Their resolve felt different. Not driven by orders. Not driven by politics. But by choice. Somewhere beyond the barrier, the first dungeon was waiting. Chapter 6, The First Dungeon. The 5 Uchihas gathered around the system interface. Shun opened the dungeon menu, and a long list of recommended dungeons appeared before them. Each dungeon displayed a recommended level. Level 1. Level 3. Level 5. Level 8. The highest recommended dungeon available to them was Level 13. Everyone fell silent. Ren frowned. So this is what the system spirit meant when it called us weak. Akira nodded. According to the system standards, our strength is only around level 13. For years, they had believed themselves to be monsters among shinobi. 5 hidden Mangekyo Sharingan users, each capable of defeating elite Jonin. Yet the system measured them as merely level 13. The realization was a little unsettling. Shun smiled faintly. It isn't necessarily a bad thing. It simply means this system measures strength on a much larger scale than the ninja world. Kaien studied the list carefully. As always, he was the strategist of the group. The 5 of them had never chosen a leader. Each excelled in different areas. When it came to planning, however, everyone naturally relied on Kaien. After several minutes, he finally made his decision. We won't challenge the highest level. The risk isn't worth it. He selected another option. Recommended dungeon, level 10. Strong enough to test ourselves, but not so dangerous that we lose control. The other 4 nodded. Let's go. The moment Kaien confirmed the selection, 5 beams of light descended from the sky. The surrounding scenery began to distort. Space twisted around them. In an instant, the hidden mountain disappeared. When their vision cleared, they found themselves standing inside a vast forest. Ancient trees stretched toward the sky. The air was thick with an unfamiliar energy. Not chakra. Something different. A blue notification appeared before each of them. Entering dungeon. Dungeon difficulty. Level 10. Good luck. Daichi stretched his shoulders. So this is a dungeon. Shun slowly observed the surroundings with his Sharingan. There are lifeforms nearby. Several dozen. But they don't have chakra. Before anyone could respond, another notification appeared. Status panel initialized. Curious, Ren opened his status window. The moment he saw it, his expression froze. What? The others immediately opened theirs as well. Every single one of them had the same result. Level 1. Silence. Daichi looked back and forth between the screen and his own body. Level 1. Akira frowned. Impossible. We were judged to be around level 13 before entering. Kaien's eyes narrowed. So our dungeon level starts from 1. Or the system has temporarily sealed part of our strength. Shun looked at his own status panel thoughtfully. It seems, we'll have to discover the answer ourselves. Just then, a deep growl echoed through the forest. The bushes ahead began to shake. Something was coming. Chapter 7, Synchronization. The bushes rustled violently. A wolf-like monster slowly stepped into the clearing. Its body was nearly twice the size of an ordinary wolf. Dark gray fur covered its muscular body, and its crimson eyes were filled with hostility. The monster growled, yet none of the 5 Uchihas looked nervous. Instead, Daichi took a single step forward. I'll test it. Boom. His figure disappeared. A second later, he appeared directly before the monster. Without using chakra, without activating his Sharingan, he threw a simple punch. Bang. Asterisk. The monster's head exploded. Its massive body flew dozens of meters before crashing into several trees. Silence. The 5 stared at the corpse. Daichi looked down at his fist before turning toward the others. My strength hasn't decreased. Ren nodded after sensing Daichi's movements. Mine hasn't either. Akira closed his eyes for a moment before circulating his chakra. No changes. My chakra reserves are exactly the same. Kaien activated his Sharingan. The familiar strain on his eyes remained. Our abilities are intact. Shun looked thoughtfully at his status panel. It still displayed only one line. Level 1. He lowered the screen and began thinking. If our strength hasn't been reduced, then why does the system say we're level 1? The others waited quietly. Whenever Shun entered this state, it meant he was piecing together clues. Several moments later, his eyes lit up. I think I've figured it out. The others immediately looked at him. Shun spoke slowly. I don't think this status panel represents our current strength. I think it represents our synchronization with the system. Kaien frowned. Synchronization. Shun nodded. Exactly. Our real bodies still possess all the strength we've accumulated over the years. The system didn't weaken us. But, it also hasn't recognized that strength is its own yet. Ren crossed his arms. So you're saying, our bodies and the system are separate? At the moment, yes. Shun replied. But eventually, they'll become one. He pointed toward his status panel. I think we need to synchronize our real strength with the system's status. Only after that synchronization is complete will our true growth through the system begin. Akira's eyes narrowed. So our current levels are only placeholders. Exactly. Shun nodded. We've spent our entire lives increasing our strength through chakra training, battle experience, and research. The system follows a completely different method. It measures growth through levels, experience, and attributes. He smiled faintly. In other words, we're completely changing the way we become stronger. The others silently considered his words. It made sense. They weren't starting over. They were adapting to an entirely new path of cultivation. Just then, a blue notification appeared before all 5 of them. Monster defeated. Synchronization progress increased. Experience gained. 12. The 5 exchanged surprised glances. Shun smiled. It looks like my guess was correct. Chapter 8, The New Path. The blue notification slowly faded. For a few moments, no one spoke. Each of the 5 Uchihas was deep in thought. Then Daichi broke the silence. So, if your theory is correct. He looked at Shun. Then we should increase our status panel level as quickly as possible. Only after we've fully synchronized with the system can our real growth begin. Shun nodded. I think so. Right now, we're like 2 separate systems. Our real strength belongs to the ninja world. Our status panel belongs to the dungeon system. The faster those 2 synchronize, the sooner the system will recognize our true strength. Akira folded his arms. That also explains why the system evaluated us as level 13 before entering the dungeon. It already estimated our actual combat power. But our personal status still starts at level 1. Kyan nodded. So our current priority isn't becoming stronger. It's synchronizing. Once synchronization is complete, every level we gain afterward should produce genuine growth. Ren smiled. That actually makes things simple. We don't need to train the old way anymore. We just need to clear dungeons. Everything else will follow. Shun shook his head. Not entirely. The others looked at him. We shouldn't abandon our old training. Our chakra control, our swordsmanship, our body techniques, our research, they're still ours. The system simply gives us another path. If we combine both methods, we'll advance much faster than anyone who relies on only one. The others immediately understood. The system wasn't replacing everything they had learned. It was becoming another foundation. A stronger foundation. Kyan looked deeper into the forest. In that case, we'll hunt every monster in this dungeon. We'll gather as much experience as possible. We'll observe every change in our status panels. And once we return, we'll analyze the results before entering the next dungeon. The other 4 nodded. That was their style. Fight, observe, research, improve, then repeat. Daichi cracked his knuckles, a grin spreading across his face. It's been a long time since I've looked forward to a battle. Ren laughed softly. Then let's stop talking. There are still plenty of monsters waiting for us. As if responding to his words, more growls echoed from deeper within the forest. One pair of crimson eyes appeared. Then another. Then dozens. The first hunt of the 5 hidden Uchihas had officially begun. Chapter 9, A One-Sided Hunt. Without another word, the 5 Uchihas split into a loose formation. Akira remained in the center. Kyan observed the surroundings, constantly adjusting their route. Ren scouted ahead. Daichi took the front line. Shun stayed slightly behind, watching both the monsters and the system notifications. It was the formation they had used countless times during the Third Shinobi World War. No leader. Only absolute trust. A few hundred meters later, more than 20 wolf monsters emerged from the forest. Their crimson eyes locked onto the intruders. Roar. Asterisk. The pack charged together. Daichi grinned. Finally. Boom. The ground shattered beneath his feet. He rushed forward like a cannonball. One punch. One dead monster. One kick. Another monster crashed into a tree. Before the remaining wolves could react, Ren disappeared. His sword flashed once, then twice, then 10 times. The forest became silent again. The wolves slowly collapsed one after another. On the other side, Akira casually formed a hand seal. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. A massive fireball engulfed another group of monsters. None survived. Kyan drew his blade. Unlike Ren, his swordsmanship was calm and precise. Every strike was aimed at a vital point. Every movement wasted the least possible energy. One slash, one corpse, one slash, one corpse. Meanwhile, Shun simply watched. Not because he was lazy, but because he was observing. Every time a monster died, the same notification appeared. Experience gained. Synchronization progress increased. After nearly half an hour, the forest had become eerily quiet. More than 200 monster corpses lay scattered across the ground. Not one of the 5 Uchihas had suffered so much as a scratch. The monsters had never been their opponents. Blue lights suddenly appeared before all of them. Level up. Level 2 reached. Another notification followed immediately. Synchronization rate, 8%. Shun's eyes lit up. So that's how it works. The others gathered around him. What did you find? Kyan asked. Shun pointed at the notification. Our levels aren't the important part. The synchronization percentage is. When synchronization reaches 100%, I believe our status panel will completely merge with our real body. Only then will every future level directly strengthen our true selves. Akira nodded thoughtfully. So these early levels are laying the foundation. Exactly. Shun smiled. The system isn't making us stronger yet. It's learning our bodies. And our bodies are adapting to the system. Ren laughed. In other words, we're installing the system. Daichi burst into laughter. I never thought I'd hear that sentence in the ninja world. Even Kaien allowed himself a faint smile. Then let's finish the installation. He looked toward the deeper parts of the forest. We've only cleared the outer area. If this really is a level 10 dungeon, the dungeon boss should be waiting somewhere ahead. The 5 Uchihas exchanged determined looks. Without another word, they headed toward the center of the dungeon, where the strongest monster awaited them. Chapter 10, The Slaughter Begins. The deeper they ventured into the dungeon, the denser the monster population became. The peaceful forest gradually transformed into a hunting ground. Every few hundred meters, another pack appeared. Wolves, wild boars, giant bears, venomous spiders. Monsters of every kind charged toward the 5 intruders. To the monsters, the 5 humans were prey. To the 5 Uchihas, the monsters were nothing more than experience points. Spread out. Kaien gave a simple suggestion. The others nodded. There was no need for complicated tactics. The monsters simply weren't strong enough. Boom. Daichi rushed into a herd of horned boars. Every punch shattered bones. Every kick sent monsters flying through the forest. On the opposite side, Ren became nothing more than a blur. His sword danced through the battlefield. Heads rolled. Blood stained the ground. Not a single slash was wasted. Akira stepped forward calmly. Unlike before, he did not rely solely on fire techniques. As a medical ninja, his control over chakra was terrifyingly precise. Thin, nearly invisible lines extended from his fingertips. Chakra threads. At the same time, a faint glow formed along those threads. Chakra scalpel. The 2 techniques merged seamlessly. The threads sharpened into razor-thin cutting lines. They stretched across the battlefield like a deadly web. A wolf leapt toward him. It froze midair, then split cleanly into pieces. Another monster charged. It was sliced apart before it even reached him. The threads moved silently, effortlessly. Anything that touched them was cut apart. Even the thick hide of giant bears offered no resistance. Steel would have been no different. Akira walked forward as if strolling through a garden. Behind him, nothing remained intact. The forest burned in places where his fire techniques still erupted, but most of the killing was silent. Precise. Merciless. Kaien, on the other hand, revealed a different kind of mastery. His hands moved in complex patterns. Sealing formulas appeared in midair. Seal. With a single word, glowing symbols spread across the ground. A charging group of monsters suddenly froze. Their movements halted as if bound by invisible chains. Another seal activated. Explosive tags formed within the array. Boom. The trapped monsters were obliterated instantly. Kaien didn't waste energy. He controlled the battlefield itself. Every seal was placed with purpose. Every activation maximized efficiency. He wasn't just fighting, he was dictating the flow of the battle. Meanwhile, Shun finally joined the slaughter. His black blade flashed. 1 monster, 2 monsters, 10 monsters, 20 monsters. His movements were clean and elegant, almost artistic. Years of swordsmanship and battlefield experience turned every strike into a perfect kill. The dungeon had become a slaughterhouse. Blue notifications continuously appeared before them. Level up. Level 3 reached. Level up. Level 4 reached. Synchronization increased. Level up. Level 5 reached. The notifications never stopped. Every few minutes, another level, another increase, another improvement. Hours passed. Thousands of monsters fell. The 5 Uchihas never slowed down. Their movements became even smoother as their synchronization steadily increased. Daichi laughed loudly as another monster exploded beneath his fist. I've never leveled up this fast. Ren smiled while wiping blood from his sword. This is much more rewarding than war. Akira glanced at his status panel, his chakra threads still slicing through distant targets. Level 7. My synchronization has already reached 28%. Kaien nodded, sealing another group of monsters in place before eliminating them. The stronger monsters deeper inside the dungeon give much more experience. Shun glanced at his own panel. As the host, he was also watching the others' progress. Everyone was advancing rapidly, just as he had expected. The synchronization process accelerated as their levels increased. At this rate, they wouldn't need many dungeons before their real bodies completely synchronized with the system. The 5 of them continued moving deeper. Nothing could stop them. To the monsters, this day became a nightmare. To the 5 hidden Uchihas, it was the beginning of a new era. The era of endless growth. And somewhere in the deepest part of the dungeon boss slowly opened its eyes. It had finally noticed the invaders who had turned its domain into a slaughterhouse. Chapter 11, The Dungeon Boss. The 5 Uchihas continued advancing deeper into the dungeon. Unlike before, the monsters no longer attacked in scattered packs. Hundreds gathered together. They seemed to have received a single command. Protect the center. Kyan noticed it immediately. The boss knows we're coming. Shun nodded. Then let's stop wasting time. Boom. The slaughter began once more. Daichi charged into the middle of the horde like an unstoppable beast. Every punch blasted several monsters into the air. Every kick shattered bones and tore through flesh. Ren vanished completely. Only flashes of sword light remained. Wherever the light passed, monsters collapsed. Akira's chakra threads spread through the battlefield once again. The nearly invisible threads formed an enormous web. Dozens of charging monsters were sliced into pieces before they realized they had already died. Kyan calmly expanded his ceiling arrays. One formation restricted movement. Another amplified explosions. A third redirected monsters into kill zones prepared by the others. Their teamwork had become instinct. No commands were needed. Years of fighting together had made them move as one. Blue notifications flooded their vision. Level up. Level 8. Level up. Level 9. Synchronization increased. Level up. Level 10. Hours passed. Mountains of monster corpses covered the forest. Not one of the 5 had suffered a serious injury. Finally, the forest became completely silent. Then, boom. The earth trembled violently. Ancient trees toppled one after another. A massive figure slowly emerged from the darkness. It was nearly 10 meters tall. Its body resembled a black gorilla covered in crimson armor like scales. 2 enormous horns curved upward from its head. Its eyes glowed with a blood-red light. The pressure it released was vastly greater than every monster they had encountered. A blue notification appeared. Dungeon Boss. Crimson Earth Ape. Boss rank. Daichi smiled excitedly. Now that's more like it. Ren rested his sword on his shoulder. Finally, a worthy opponent. The Crimson Earth Ape let out a deafening roar. The sound wave alone shattered nearby trees. Then, it disappeared. Its enormous body moved with unbelievable speed. It appeared directly before Daichi. Its gigantic fist descended like a falling mountain. Boom. The ground exploded. Dust covered the battlefield. When the dust settled, Daichi was standing exactly where he had been. One hand was raised. He had stopped the boss's punch with a single palm. Cracks spread beneath his feet. Daichi grinned. So, you're the boss. The Crimson Earth Ape roared again. Daichi's grin widened. Good. I was worried this dungeon would end up being boring. Behind him, the other 4 remained perfectly calm. Not one of them made a move. They all knew. Against their current strength, one dungeon boss wasn't enough to threaten any of them. Chapter 12, 2 minutes. The Crimson Earth Ape roared in fury. Its massive fists descended like falling meteors. Boom, boom, boom. Every strike shattered the earth. Ancient trees were uprooted by the shockwaves alone. Yet, Daichi never took a single step back. He casually blocked every punch with his bare hands. To an ordinary shinobi, the boss was a terrifying monster. To Daichi, it was simply a tougher training dummy. The ape swung its tail. Daichi ducked effortlessly. Its claws slashed downward. He caught the wrist and threw the 10-meter-tall monster across the battlefield. Boom. The boss crashed through dozens of trees before forcing itself back to its feet. It roared once more. This time, crimson energy gathered around its fists. Its aura surged dramatically. Shun watched from the side. It entered its berserk state. Kyan nodded. Looks like every dungeon boss has special abilities. The Crimson Earth Ape charged again. Its speed had nearly doubled. The ground exploded beneath its feet as it rushed toward Daichi. Daichi smiled. Finally, you've become a little interesting. The ape threw everything it had. Punches, kicks, tail strikes, even boulders the size of houses. Daichi answered with nothing but his fists. Every collision echoed throughout the forest. The battle looked fierce, but only because Daichi was deliberately testing the boss. He wanted to understand the limits of a level 10 dungeon boss. Exactly 2 minutes after the battle began, Daichi sighed. That's enough. He stepped forward. For the first time, he activated chakra. His muscles swelled slightly. The ground beneath him cracked. He clenched his right fist. No fancy techniques. No chakra nature. Just one punch. Boom. His fist collided with the Crimson Earth Ape's chest. For an instant, everything became silent. Then, a deafening explosion echoed across the dungeon. The boss's armored chest caved in instantly. The shockwave passed completely through its body. The enormous monster froze. Cracks spread across its entire body. One, two, hundreds. Then the crimson earth ate shattered into countless fragments of light. The battlefield fell silent. Daichi slowly lowered his fist. A little weaker than I expected. Blue notifications immediately filled the air. Dungeon boss defeated. Dungeon cleared. Level up. Level 11. Synchronization increased to 46%. Reward obtained. Gold coins, 217. A large golden treasure chest materialized before the 5 Uchihas. Ren whistled. So this is the dungeon reward. Kaien looked at the notification. Only 217 gold coins. We still need quite a few more runs before we can afford the organ cloning technique. Shun nodded. We expected that. This was only our first dungeon. He looked at his synchronization progress. 46%. A smile appeared on his face. We've already synchronized nearly half of our strength with the system. If every dungeon gives similar progress, it won't take long before our status panels completely merge with our real bodies. The other 4 smiled. Their first dungeon had been a complete success. And this was only the beginning. Chapter 13, The Hidden Reward. The moment the dungeon boss disappeared, the entire forest began dissolving into particles of light. The dungeon was collapsing. A bright pillar of light surrounded the 5 Uchihas. When the light faded, they found themselves back on their hidden mountain. The familiar breeze welcomed them home. For a few moments, no one spoke. Then Daichi stretched his body. I barely worked up a sweat. Ren laughed, calling that a boss was generous. Kaien ignored them. Check the rewards first. Everyone nodded. A blue notification appeared before them. Dungeon cleared. Reward obtained. Gold coins, 217. Silence fell. Ren blinked. That's it. No chest. No items. Shun shook his head. It seems dungeon rewards only come in gold coins. Kaien crossed his arms. So if we want anything else, we have to buy it from the shop. Akira nodded. That explains the system. Clear dungeons, earn coins, then exchange them for resources. Daichi smirked. Simple enough. Shun opened the shop interface again. Rows of items appeared before him. Weapons, materials, potions, skill books. Everything they had seen before was still there. But now, they finally had currency. Shun glanced at their total. 217 gold coins. Ren leaned closer. So what can we afford? Shun quickly scanned the prices. Low-grade healing potion, 50 gold coins. Beginner chakra recovery potion, 60 gold coins. Steel ingot, 30 gold coins. Basic detection technique, 200 gold coins. Kaien raised an eyebrow. So even a basic skill costs nearly everything we earned. Akira nodded. Which means we need multiple dungeon runs just to build a foundation. Ren grinned. Good. That makes things interesting. Shun's gaze lingered on the skill book. Basic detection technique, 200 gold coins. He thought for a moment. Then he spoke. We'll save for now. No unnecessary spending. We need to understand the system fully before investing. Daichi shrugged. Fine by me. As long as we keep fighting. Shun nodded. The group fell into a brief silence as they considered their next move. Their first dungeon had been a success. But it was clear. This was only the beginning. Chapter 14, A Night of Celebration. The 5 Uchihas remained seated in the courtyard, quietly reviewing everything that had happened during the day. A mysterious system, their first dungeon, their first gold coins, and a completely new path to becoming stronger. Kaien was the first to stand. That's enough for today. The others looked at him. We'll continue tomorrow. No matter how excited we are, rushing forward without rest is foolish. Today was our first day using the system. We've already gathered enough information. We'll spend tonight organizing everything we've learned. The others nodded in agreement. That had always been Kaien's style. He never let excitement cloud his judgment. Daichi stretched his arms. Finally, I was starting to get hungry. Ren laughed. After slaughtering thousands of monsters, food does sound good. Akira closed his status panel. I'll write down today's observations. We should compare everyone's synchronization progress tomorrow. Shun smiled. Good idea. The more data we collect, the faster we'll understand the system. Daichi suddenly clapped his hands. Enough talking. He grinned at the others. We've been hiding in these mountains for 2 years. Today we found a new path to limitless growth. That deserves a celebration. Ren immediately agreed. I'll prepare the barbecue. Akira gave a rare smile. I'll bring the drinks. Kaien shook his head helplessly. You 4. A faint smile still appeared on his face. Fine. We celebrate tonight. But tomorrow morning, we return to work. Everyone nodded. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the mountains, the 5 Uchihas gathered around a large campfire. Fresh meat roasted over the flames. Laughter echoed through the hidden valley. For the first time in many years. None of them spoke about war. None of them spoke about Konoha. None of them spoke about death. Tonight, they were simply 5 friends celebrating the beginning of a new journey. Above them, countless stars illuminated the night sky. None of them realized that this peaceful evening would be remembered as the final quiet night before their lives changed forever. Chapter 15, The Management Function. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight illuminated the hidden mountain. Unlike their usual routine of immediately beginning training, the 5 Uchihas gathered in Shun's house. Today's priority wasn't entering another dungeon. It was understanding the new function Shun had unlocked. Shun sat cross-legged on the floor and opened his system interface. A new icon had appeared. Management. He selected it. A blue window unfolded before him. Dungeon leveling system. Several new options appeared beneath it. Users. Team management. Experience distribution. System mail. Locked functions. The 5 exchanged surprised looks. Ren spoke first. So the system really does have extra features. Shun nodded. Looks like it. He selected users. Immediately, 4 names appeared. Ren Uchiha. Level 11. Synchronization. 46%. Daichi Uchiha. Level 11. Synchronization. 46%. Akira Uchiha. Level 11. Synchronization. 46%. Kaien Uchiha. Level 11. Synchronization. 46%. Shun smiled. So I can monitor everyone's progress. Akira nodded thoughtfully. That'll make our research much easier. Kaien pointed at another option. Open team management. Shun did. Another window appeared. Current team members, 5/5. Experience sharing, disabled. Friendly fire, disabled. Dungeon communication, enabled. Ren's eyes widened. Experience sharing. Can we split experience? Shun tried selecting the option. A notification immediately appeared. Feature locked. Reach synchronization 100% to unlock this function. So it's locked. Shun closed the window and opened the final available option. System mail. The screen was empty. Except for one unread message. From System. Subject. Welcome. Everyone leaned forward. Shun opened it. The message contained only a single sentence. Congratulations on clearing your first dungeon. Continue growing. More features will unlock as your synchronization increases. Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. Ren scratched his head. That wasn't helpful. Daichi laughed. They really like keeping secrets. Kaien, however, wasn't paying attention to the message anymore. He was staring at one particular line. Synchronization required. 100%. He looked at the others. Our goal just became even clearer. We don't stop until every one of us reaches 100% synchronization. Akira nodded. Only then will the system reveal its full potential. Shun closed the interface. Then let's stop wasting time. The dungeon isn't going anywhere. But neither is our blindness. The sooner we earn 1,000 gold coins, the sooner we can complete the Eternal Eye project. The other 4 stood. Their expressions became serious once again. Yesterday had been exploration. Today, their true grind would begin. Chapter 16. The Level 13 Dungeon. After a simple breakfast, the 5 Uchihas gathered once more in Shun's courtyard. Without wasting any time, Shun opened the dungeon menu. The familiar list of dungeons appeared. This time, none of them looked at the lower level dungeons. Their eyes were fixed on the highest one available. Recommended dungeon. Level 13. It was the strongest dungeon currently accessible to them. Kaien studied the information for several moments before speaking. We cleared the level 10 dungeon without any difficulty. There was no real danger. He looked at the others. So today, we challenge the level 13 dungeon. No one objected. Shun nodded. Our synchronization is already 46%. The stronger the dungeon, the faster it should increase. Akira added, and the gold coin reward should be higher. Ren smiled. Then there's nothing to think about. Daichi cracked his knuckles. I hope this boss lasts longer than 2 minutes. Kaien selected the dungeon. A blue confirmation window appeared. Enter level 13 dungeon. Yes, no. Shun pressed yes. 5 pillars of light descended from the sky. Space distorted around them once again. The hidden mountain disappeared. When the light faded, the scenery had completely changed. There was no forest. Instead, an endless mountain range stretched as far as the eye could see. Jagged cliffs pierced the clouds. The ground was covered with black stone instead of grass. Cold winds howled through the valleys. The atmosphere itself felt heavier than before. A blue notification appeared. Entering dungeon. Dungeon difficulty. Level 13 terrain. Rocky Mountains. Warning. Monsters possess enhanced physical abilities. Daichi smiled. Now this feels like a real dungeon. Ren looked around carefully. There aren't many places to hide. Akira crouched and touched the ground. The stone is unusually hard. Even ordinary explosive tags won't damage it much. Kaien observed the surrounding mountains. The terrain limits our movement. It also gives flying monsters an advantage. Shun activated his Sharingan. His eyes swept across the mountain peaks. Several powerful lifeforms immediately entered his vision. He smiled faintly. We've been surrounded. The other 4 remained calm. How many? Kaien asked. Shun answered after a brief pause. At least 50. They're much stronger than the monsters in the previous dungeon. As if confirming his words. A loud screech echoed across the mountains. Dozens of enormous creatures leapt from the cliffs. Unlike the wolves and bears from the previous dungeon, these monsters resembled giant mountain apes with bodies covered in dark stone-like armor. Each one stood over 4 meters tall. Their blood-red eyes were locked onto the 5 Uchihas. Ren slowly drew his sword. It looks like we won't have to search for experience this time. The giant apes roared in unison. Then all 50 monsters charged down the mountainside at once. The second hunt had begun. Chapter 17, Perfect Teamwork. Dozens of giant stone apes charged down the mountainside. At the same time, a deafening screech echoed through the sky. Shun looked up. More monsters. Hundreds of meters above them, nearly 20 giant eagle-like beasts circled the battlefield. Each possessed wings spanning over 10 meters. Their talons were as sharp as swords. In the ninja world, enemies capable of flying were incredibly rare. Most shinobi spent their entire lives fighting opponents on the ground. Even the 5 Uchihas had almost no experience fighting aerial enemies. But that uncertainty lasted for only a second. Kaien's mind immediately began working. I've got it. Everyone trusted his judgment without question. Akira, you're with me. We'll deal with everything in the sky. Akira nodded. Understood. Ren, Shun, you two focus on clearing the ground as quickly as possible. Daichi. Kaien looked toward the giant monsters charging at them. Do whatever you want. Daichi grinned. That's the easiest order you've ever given me. The 5 split apart instantly. Years of fighting together meant they didn't need further explanations. Akira jumped onto a cliff. His fingers moved rapidly. Dozens of razor-thin chakra threads shot into the sky. The flying monsters tried to dodge. But Kaien had already acted. Countless sealing tags scattered through the air. Binding seal. Golden chains erupted from the seals. Several flying monsters suddenly slowed, their movements restricted for a brief moment. That was all Akira needed. His chakra threads swept through the sky. One flying monster lost both wings. Another had its neck severed. A third was sliced cleanly in half. One after another, the aerial monsters fell from the sky like rain. Meanwhile, Ren and Shun had become blurs on the battlefield. Ren's sword flashed relentlessly. Every swing claimed another life. His movements were swift and direct. There wasn't a single unnecessary step. Beside him, Shun's black blade danced through the battlefield. Elegant, precise, merciless. The giant stone apes that had seemed terrifying moments ago were butchered like pigs. Heads rolled, arms flew through the air. Blood dyed the black stone red. Not a single monster could block even one strike. Then there was Daichi. He looked around the battlefield. His eyes landed on a charging bull monster nearly 5 meters tall. It lowered its horns and charged. Daichi didn't move. At the last possible moment, he grabbed one of its enormous horns with a single hand. The bull struggled desperately. It couldn't move another step. Daichi laughed loudly. You're mine now. With a tremendous pull, he ripped the monster's horn from its skull. The bull collapsed instantly. Daichi looked at the horn. Then smiled. Not bad. The next second, he swung the gigantic horn like a war hammer. Boom. Asterisk. One giant ape was smashed into the ground. Boom. Asterisk. Another monster's skull exploded. Boom. Asterisk. 3 more monsters were launched through the air. Every swing crushed another enemy. Every impact shook the mountain. Ren glanced at Daichi while slicing another monster apart. You know, I don't think that's how horns are supposed to be used. Daichi burst into laughter. It works, doesn't it? Shun smiled faintly as another monster fell beneath his sword. No one can argue with the results. Kaien, while directing another flock of flying monsters into Akira's killing zone, simply shook his head. Only Daichi would think of using a monster as a weapon against other monsters. Within minutes, the battlefield was completely one-sided. The monsters had numbers. The 5 Uchihas had experience. And experience. Won every time. Blue system notifications continued appearing without pause. Their levels rose. Their synchronization increased. And the massacre continued. Chapter 18, the level 13 boss. After nearly 4 hours of non-stop fighting, the mountain range finally fell silent. Thousands of monster corpses were scattered across the valleys and cliffs. Blue notifications flashed before the 5 Uchihas. Level up. Level 13. Synchronization. 96%. Ren smiled. Only 2 dungeons. And we've already reached 96%. Akira nodded. The higher the level, the more experience it requires. But our synchronization is rising even faster. Kaien looked toward the highest mountain. The boss is waiting, as if responding to his words. A deafening roar echoed across the entire dungeon. The sky darkened. The mountain beneath their feet trembled. Cracks spread across the enormous peak ahead of them. Boom! The summit exploded. An enormous creature slowly climbed out of the mountain itself. It was nearly 20 meters tall. Its body looked as though it had been carved from black granite. Molten lava flowed through the cracks in its body like blood. A pair of massive wings unfolded behind it. Unlike the smaller flying monsters, this one could both fly and fight on the ground. A blue notification appeared. Dungeon boss. Mountain tyrant. Level 13 boss. Daichi grinned. A flying boss. Ren rested his sword on his shoulder. Good. I was getting bored. The mountain tyrant spread its wings. With a single flap, hundreds of razor-sharp stone spikes rained from the sky. Kaien reacted instantly. Formation 3. The 5 moved without hesitation. Akira and Kaien leapt into the air. Akira's chakra threads intercepted dozens of stone spikes, slicing them apart before they could reach the ground. At the same time, Kaien activated dozens of sealing arrays in midair. The remaining projectiles struck the barriers and exploded harmlessly. Meanwhile, Ren and Shun rushed toward the boss from opposite directions. Their swords flashed simultaneously. The mountain tyrant raised both arms to block. Clang! Asterisk. Sparks flew. Deep cuts appeared across its rocky armor. But the wounds sealed instantly. Molten lava surged through the cracks, hardening into fresh stone. Ren's eyes narrowed. It regenerated. The boss roared. A shockwave exploded outward. Boom! Ren and Shun were forced back midair. Before they could recover, the mountain tyrant vanished. Akira's eyes widened. Above, the boss reappeared directly overhead. Its wings folded inward as it descended like a meteor. Kaien reacted instantly. Scatter. The ground shattered. A massive crater formed where the boss landed. Shockwaves tore through the battlefield, sending debris flying in every direction. Daichi planted his feet and blocked with both arms. Even he was pushed back several meters. Now that's more like it. The mountain tyrant raised one arm. The ground trembled violently. Dozens of stone pillars erupted upward, forming a cage around the battlefield. Akira frowned. It's controlling the terrain. Kaien's expression turned serious. This isn't a normal boss. Before anyone could respond, the boss inhaled deeply. The lava within its body glowed brighter. Then, a torrent of molten fire erupted from its mouth. A sweeping inferno engulfed everything in its path. Akira's threads snapped under the heat. Kaien's barriers cracked. Ren and Shun barely escaped by leaping away at the last second. The battlefield turned into a sea of flames. Daichi charged straight through it. His skin burned, but he didn't slow down. He swung his fist toward the boss's chest. Boom! Asterisk. The impact echoed like thunder. The mountain tyrant staggered, but didn't fall. Instead, it grabbed Daichi's arm. For the first time, Daichi's grin faded slightly. Oh! The boss tightened its grip. Cracks spread across Daichi's arm guard. Then, it slammed him into the ground. Boom! The entire mountain shook. Ren's expression hardened. Daichi. Dust filled the air. Before anyone could move, the mountain tyrant spread its wings again. The sky darkened further. More stone spikes formed above them. But this time, they were larger, sharper, and glowing with molten energy. Kaien clenched his fist. This is going to be a long fight. The boss roared once more. And the real battle had only just begun. Chapter 19, The Final Synchronization. The mountain tyrant hovered high above the battlefield. Stone pillars continued to erupt from the ground, reshaping the terrain with every passing second. Kaien watched the battlefield carefully. Then he spoke. Its greatest strength isn't its physical power. It's its control over the terrain. It's like an extremely high-level earth release technique. He looked at the others. We're done testing. Use Susanoo. Without hesitation, all 5 activated their Mangekyo Sharingan. Their crimson eyes spun rapidly. Boom! 5 enormous chakra skeletons erupted into existence. Bones formed. Muscles of chakra followed. Then armor. In seconds, 5 third-stage Susanoo stood upon the battlefield. This was the current limit of their Mangekyo Sharingan. Beyond this stage, their eyes could no longer endure the strain. The mountain tyrant roared and took to the sky again. Kaien smiled. Just as I expected. Akira. Akira nodded. The two of them moved simultaneously. Kaien's Susanoo extended enormous sealing chains toward the sky. At the same time, Akira's Susanoo amplified thousands of chakra threads. Each thread became several times stronger and longer. The chains wrapped around the boss's body. The chakra threads followed immediately after, binding its wings, legs, and neck. The mountain tyrant struggled violently. Its enormous wings beat desperately. But it couldn't break free. Kaien shouted. Now! Daichi's Susanoo sprinted forward. Before him stood Ren's and Shun's Susanoo. Without saying a word, the two giant warriors lowered their armored arms, creating a staircase. Daichi's Susanoo stepped onto Ren's arm, jumped to Shun's, then launched itself into the sky. Boom! The enormous Susanoo shot upward like a cannonball. Daichi's giant chakra fist slammed directly into the mountain tyrant's chest. The impact echoed across the entire dungeon. The restrained monster was blasted out of the sky. It crashed into the mountain below with earth-shaking force. Boom! The entire mountain collapsed. Before the boss could stand again, Ren and Shun had already arrived. Their Susanoo drew massive chakra blades. Two flashes crossed each other. Slash! Both wings were severed cleanly. The mountain tyrant roared in agony. It tried to fly again, but its wings had already fallen to the ground. Kaien smiled. No more flying. Now, we fight on equal ground. The battle continued. Without its greatest advantage, the mountain tyrant fought desperately. Its control over the terrain remained terrifying. Mountains rose. Stone dragons formed. Lava burst from beneath the earth. Yet against the flawless teamwork of the 5 Uchihas, it gradually lost ground. An hour later, the mountain tyrant was covered in wounds. Its regeneration had slowed dramatically. Its movements became sluggish. Daichi raised both fists. This ends now. The 5 Susanoo attacked simultaneously. 5 ultimate strikes landed at the exact same moment. Boom! The mountain tyrant's body shattered completely. Countless fragments of stone and molten lava scattered across the battlefield before dissolving into particles of light. The dungeon fell silent. Blue notifications appeared before all 5 of them. Dungeon boss defeated. Dungeon cleared. Synchronization complete. 100%. The 5 immediately felt something change. An invisible barrier within their bodies disappeared. Their status panels no longer felt separate. Instead, they became part of them. Completely synchronized. Then, silence. No new level appeared. Everyone stared at their status panels. Still, level 13. Daichi blinked. That's unfair. I thought we'd level up. Kaien laughed softly. It actually makes perfect sense. The others looked toward him. We've completed synchronization. That means the system now fully recognizes our real strength. He pointed toward the status panel. Level 13 wasn't a temporary number. It represented our actual combat strength all along. Our synchronization is complete. Our shortcuts are over. He continued calmly. In the ninja world, we're already around cage level. At this stage, even with our talent, improving our strength normally takes years. He smiled faintly. The dungeon system doesn't erase the time required to grow. It shortens it. It turns years into months. It turns months into weeks. But growth must still be earned. The others nodded. Even Daichi couldn't argue. Shun looked at his fully synchronized status panel. A smile slowly appeared on his face. So, the real journey begins now. For the first time, the 5 hidden Uchihas were no longer adapting to the system. From this moment onward, every level they gained would directly strengthen their real bodies. Their true growth had finally begun. Chapter 20, the first true level. The moment the dungeon disappeared, the 5 Uchihas returned to their hidden mountain. None of them spoke. Each silently felt the subtle changes within their bodies. Synchronization. It was complete. For the first time, the system no longer felt like something external. It had become a part of them. Shun slowly opened his status panel. Name: Shun Uchiha. Level: 13. Synchronization: 100%. He clenched his fist. The system has completely merged with our bodies. The others nodded. They could all feel it. Their chakra flowed more naturally through every muscle. Their bodies responded more smoothly than before. Even though their strength hadn't increased, everything felt more refined. Kaien suddenly looked at Shun. Open the management function. Shun nodded. The familiar interface appeared. Immediately, a notification popped up. Congratulations. Synchronization complete. New functions unlocked. 3 previously locked options lit up. Party experience sharing. Training room. Team warehouse. Ren whistled. 3 new functions at once. Shun selected training room. A description appeared. Training room. Create a training environment based on monsters previously defeated. No gold coin rewards. Experience reduced to 20%. No risk of death. Akira's eyes brightened. So we can spar against dungeon monsters without wasting real dungeon attempts. Kyan nodded. Perfect. It'll let us test new techniques. Shun then opened Team Warehouse. An enormous storage space appeared. It was completely empty. So this is a shared inventory. Daichi smiled. Finally. I was getting tired of carrying monster horns around. Everyone laughed. Finally, Shun selected Party Experience Sharing. Another window appeared. Current share rate, 0%. Maximum share rate, 100%. Ren looked confused. What does that mean? Shun read the explanation. It allows the user to redistribute experience earned by party members. If one person kills a monster, the others can receive a portion of that experience. Kyan immediately understood the value. So weaker members can catch up. Akira nodded. Or one person can specialize in fighting while another focuses on research. Shun smiled. This management function is far more useful than I expected. Without hesitation, he adjusted the setting. Share rate, 100%. Daichi grinned. Of course, we always give everything in battle. No reason to hold anything back. The others nodded in agreement. Just then, another notification appeared before all 5 of them. Synchronization complete. Real growth enabled. Silence filled the room. Then, without warning, a surge of energy spread throughout their bodies. It was subtle, yet unmistakable. Their chakra became denser. Their muscles felt slightly stronger. Their senses sharpened. At the same moment, the experience they had accumulated after reaching full synchronization was finally processed. 5 identical notifications appeared. Level up. Level 14. The 5 stood frozen. Daichi slowly looked at his hands. I got stronger. Unlike every previous level, this time they could physically feel the increase. There was no doubt. The system wasn't merely displaying a number anymore. It was directly strengthening their real bodies. Shun smiled. So Kyan was right. Everything before level 14 was synchronization. This, he looked at the glowing notification, is our first real level. For the first time since obtaining the dungeon leveling system, the 5 hidden Uchihas had truly begun to grow beyond the limits of the ninja world. Chapter 21, 1000 gold coins. For the next 7 days, the hidden mountain became unusually quiet. Every morning, the 5 Uchihas entered a dungeon. Every evening, they returned to analyze the results. No celebrations, no wasted time. Their lives settled into a perfect rhythm. Fight, research, improve, repeat. With their synchronization complete, every level now produced real growth. Although the increase from a single level wasn't dramatic, it was unmistakable. Each level strengthened every aspect of their bodies. Their chakra reserves slowly increased. Their physical strength improved. Their reaction speed became faster. Even their Mangekyo Sharingan seemed easier to control. However, the speed of leveling had clearly slowed. Far slower than before. What once took a single dungeon run now required multiple. The higher their level climbed, the harder it became to advance. The training room also became an invaluable tool. Every night, they recreated monsters they had already defeated. Akira tested new combinations of his chakra threads. Kyan experimented with increasingly complex ceiling arrays. Ren refined his swordsmanship against endless waves of monsters. Daichi perfected his hand-to-hand combat, often using monsters themselves as weapons. Shun spent most of his time studying the system while polishing his sword techniques. Day after day, the teamwork of the 5 Uchihas reached an entirely new level. Because of the 100% party experience sharing setting, none of them fell behind. Whenever one person killed a monster, everyone received the same experience. Their levels rose together, slowly, steadily, until level 15, and then they stopped. No matter how many dungeons they cleared, no matter how efficiently they fought, the experience gained became increasingly insignificant. Leveling further would take far more time. At the same time, their gold coins steadily accumulated. 513, 642, 784, 896, 945. Finally, after clearing another level 13 dungeon, a familiar notification appeared. Dungeon cleared. Gold coins obtained, 108. Shun immediately checked the team's balance. His eyes lit up. A smile slowly spread across his face. We did it. The other 4 gathered around him. Displayed on the screen was a single number. Team gold coins, 1053. Daichi laughed loudly. Finally, Ren grinned. Looks like we'll be seeing again for the rest of our lives. Akira nodded quietly. Our biggest weakness is about to disappear. Kyan folded his arms. Buy it. There is no reason to wait. Shun immediately opened the system shop. He searched for the item they had decided on from the very beginning. It still occupied the same place. Universal Advanced Cloning Method of Body Organs 99% Success Rate. Price: 1,000 gold coins. Without hesitation, Shun pressed purchase. The team's gold coin balance instantly dropped. Remaining gold coins, 53. A golden beam of light descended from the sky. Instead of a scroll, instead of a book, a crystal sphere appeared before the 5 Uchihas. Inside it floated countless streams of information. A notification appeared. Purchase successful. Knowledge transfer ready. Shun looked at the others and smiled. Our Eternal Eye project can finally continue. For the first time in years, the 5 hidden Uchihas could clearly see the end of the road they had been walking. A road that no longer ended in blindness, but in evolution. Chapter 22, the final piece. The crystal sphere floated quietly in the center of the room. Golden streams of light continuously flowed within it. No one reached for it immediately. After years of research, the final answer was finally before them. Kaien broke the silence. Shun, you bought it. You should receive it first. The others nodded. There was no disagreement. As the host, Shun had taken the greatest responsibility since the system appeared. Shun slowly reached out. The moment his fingers touched the crystal, it dissolved into countless particles of golden light. The knowledge rushed directly into his mind. His Mangekyo Sharingan activated instinctively. Information poured into his consciousness. Artificial organ cultivation, cell stabilization, perfect chakra synchronization, nerve integration, blood vessel regeneration, optic nerve reconstruction, immune rejection suppression, and finally, the last missing step, a method to clone a Mangekyo Sharingan without altering its chakra signature. Several minutes later, the golden light disappeared. Shun slowly opened his eyes. A smile appeared on his face. So that's the answer. The other 4 immediately gathered around him. Akira asked first, did it work? Shun nodded. It filled every gap in our research. He walked toward a large blackboard covered with formulas. Picking up a piece of chalk, he quickly began writing. Formula after formula appeared. Complex sealing arrays, medical chakra pathways, cellular division sequences. Hours passed. None of them interrupted him. When Shun finally placed the chalk down, the blackboard had become completely covered. Akira silently read through every line. His eyes gradually widened. Impossible. Ren looked at him. What is it? Akira slowly exhaled. Our previous research wasn't wrong. We solved almost everything. We were only missing one concept. He pointed at a single formula. The cloned eyes weren't accepting the original owner's ocular chakra, so the body kept rejecting them. Shun nodded. Exactly. The shop provided the missing synchronization method. Once that's added, the cloned Mangekyo becomes identical to the original. No rejection, no instability, no side effects. Kaien crossed his arms. So, our Eternal Eye project is complete. Shun smiled. On paper. Now we need to prove it. Akira's expression became serious. Fortunately, we already have everything else. Laboratory, medical equipment, cell samples, sealing arrays. The only thing missing was this final formula. Daichi grinned. So when do we start? Akira looked at everyone. Immediately. The cloning process itself will take several weeks. But once the eyes mature, the transplantation will only take a few hours. Ren laughed. After worrying about blindness for years, a few weeks is nothing. That afternoon, the 5 hidden Uchihas closed the doors to their underground laboratory. Dungeon raids temporarily became secondary. Their priority had changed. For years, they had searched for a way to preserve the light of their Mangekyo Sharingan. Now, they finally possessed the complete answer. If the experiment succeeded, the 5 of them would become the first Uchihas in history to awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, without stealing another Uchiha's eyes. Chapter 23, a new research project. 3 weeks passed quietly. The hidden mountain remained completely isolated from the outside world. Inside the underground laboratory, Akira barely left his workstation. The artificial eyes floated inside 5 transparent cultivation chambers. Each chamber contained a single pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. Countless sealing formulas covered the walls. Medical chakra continuously flowed through the laboratory. The cloning process had entered its final stage. Akira carefully observed the eyes before finally smiling. The rejection rate is 0. Shun looked at the readings. Completely stable. Akira nodded. Completely. The cloned eyes are producing exactly the same chakra fluctuations as the originals. Kaien folded his arms. Then all that's left is transplantation. Tomorrow, Akira replied. I want one final day of observation. Everyone agreed. After waiting years, one more day meant nothing. That evening, the 5 gathered around the dining table. It had been weeks since they had shared a peaceful meal together. Ren stretched lazily. I almost forgot what sunlight looked like. Daichi laughed. I almost forgot what monsters looked like. Kaien looked toward Shun. We've neglected the system for 3 weeks. Shun nodded. But the training room allowed us to maintain our combat skills. Our level didn't increase. But we didn't become rusty either. Akira suddenly placed a notebook on the table. There is something I've been thinking about. Everyone looked at him. Our Eternal Eye project is nearly finished. So we should begin planning our next research. Ren smiled. You already have another insane idea. Akira nodded without hesitation. Of course. Kaien leaned forward. What is it? Akira looked at each of them before speaking. Our Susanoo. The room became silent. He continued. Our Susanoo is incomplete. It consumes too much chakra. It damages our eyes. And it has a fixed limit. The third stage. He tapped the table. I don't like limits. Shun's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You want to improve Susanoo itself. Akira nodded. Exactly. The Eternal Mangekyo will remove the blindness. But it won't solve the inefficiency. If we can redesign the chakra structure of Susanoo, we might reduce its chakra consumption dramatically. Kaien immediately understood. So instead of creating stronger techniques, we improve the foundation. Akira smiled. Yes. Every future battle would become easier. Daichi laughed loudly. I knew you wouldn't rest after finishing one project. Ren shook his head with a smile. We're researchers before we're shinobi. Shun looked at the 4 people sitting around him. A medical genius, a sealing master, a sword master, a close combat monster, and himself. Each of them had reached a level where ordinary training could no longer satisfy them. Research had become their true path to strength. Shun slowly raised his teacup. To the completion of the Eternal Eye project. The others raised theirs as well. And, he smiled. To our next impossible project. 5 cups lightly touched. Outside, the moon illuminated the hidden mountain. While the ninja world continued exactly as history dictated, 5 forgotten Uchihas quietly began rewriting the limits of their clan from the shadows. Chapter 24, The Eternal Eyes. 3 weeks later, the underground laboratory was completely silent. 5 transparent cultivation chambers stood in the center of the room. Inside each chamber floated a pair of perfectly formed Mangekyo Sharingan. Akira carefully examined every reading one final time. Cell activity. Normal. Chakra circulation. Perfect. Ocular chakra synchronization. 100%. He slowly removed his gloves. They're ready. The other 4 immediately stood. Years of research. Months of preparation. Everything had led to this moment. Kaien looked toward Akira. Who goes first? Akira answered without hesitation. Me. If something unexpected happens, I'll understand it better than anyone else. No one objected. Akira lay down on the operating platform. Complex ceiling arrays illuminated the entire laboratory. Shun, Kaien, Ren and Daichi each took their positions. Although Akira was performing the surgery himself using chakra threads, the others would provide support if necessary. Akira took one final breath. Then, he removed his original Mangekyo Sharingan. Even after all these years, the sight still made everyone uncomfortable. Without stopping, he placed the cloned eyes into their proper position. Countless microscopic chakra threads stitched together nerves, blood vessels and chakra pathways. The ceiling arrays activated. Medical chakra flooded the room. Hours passed. No one spoke. Finally, Akira slowly opened his eyes. The familiar 3-tomo rotated. Then, the Mangekyo pattern appeared. Unlike before, there was no pain, no burning sensation, no overwhelming strain. Akira closed his eyes for a moment. Then opened them again. His vision remained perfectly clear. He smiled. It worked. Everyone in the room released the breath they had been holding. Daichi laughed first. I knew it. Ren punched the air. Finally, Kaien simply smiled. One of the biggest problems in Uchiha history had been solved. Akira stood up. He activated his Mangekyo Sharingan once more. Minutes passed. Normally, his vision would already have begun deteriorating. This time, nothing happened. He looked toward the others. The deterioration has completely disappeared. There are no signs of blindness. The chakra consumption has also decreased. Shun's eyes widened. Even the chakra consumption. Akira nodded. The cloned eyes have perfect compatibility. There isn't even the slightest amount of resistance. Kaien immediately spoke. Then let's finish. There is no reason to delay. The remaining 4 underwent the same procedure. Several hours later, 5 pairs of eyes slowly opened. 5 different Mangekyo patterns rotated silently. None of them felt pain. None of them experienced blurred vision. None of them felt the familiar strain that had haunted them for years. Ren laughed. So, this is the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Daichi activated his Susanoo. A massive skeletal warrior instantly surrounded him. Normally, Maintaining it even for a short time consumed an enormous amount of chakra. Now, the burden had almost disappeared. He dismissed it after several minutes. Less than half the chakra. Akira nodded. Exactly as expected. Shun slowly looked at his own reflection. For years, blindness had been the unavoidable fate of every Mangekyo Sharingan user. Today, that fate had ended. Kaien looked at the 5 of them before speaking calmly. Our first project is officially complete. A faint smile appeared on every face. Outside, the hidden mountain remained peaceful. The ninja world knew nothing. No one would believe that 5 forgotten Uchihas had quietly accomplished something even Madara Uchiha had believed impossible. They had awakened the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, without sacrificing a single pair of Uchiha eyes. Chapter 25, A New Horizon. After the excitement settled, the 5 Uchihas instinctively opened their status panels. For a brief moment, nobody spoke. Then Daichi's eyes widened. What? Ren looked at his own panel. His expression froze as well. Shun immediately opened the team interface. 5 identical status windows appeared. Level 18. Silence filled the laboratory. Kaien was the first to understand. So that's how it works. Akira looked toward him. The eternal Mangekyo wasn't just an eye transplant. It removed the final bottleneck in our bodies. Kaien nodded. The system recognized that improvement is genuine growth. We didn't simply gain better eyesight. Our entire bodies evolved. That's why the system immediately synchronized the change. Shun smiled. So our research can also increase our levels. The system isn't limited to dungeon experience. Akira nodded thoughtfully. Interesting. That means the dungeon system recognizes genuine evolution. It doesn't care how that evolution is achieved. Daichi laughed. I don't care why. I just became 3 levels stronger. Later that afternoon, the 5 left the hidden mountain. Instead of heading toward another dungeon, they traveled far away from civilization. Hours later, they arrived at an isolated coastline. Nothing surrounded them except the endless sea. Kaien looked around and nodded. No witnesses. Good. The 5 exchanged glances. Their eternal Mangekyo Sharingan activated simultaneously. Boom. 5 enormous chakra skeletons erupted into existence. They quickly evolved. Muscles, armor, legs, arms. Finally, the last layer of armor covered the giants. A pair of gigantic wings unfolded behind each one. Towering over the sea, 5 complete body Susanoo stood beneath the sky. Each one stood nearly 240 meters tall. The ocean below churned violently from the pressure alone. None of them intended to fight. Today, they only wanted to understand this new power. Daichi looked around from inside his Susanoo. So this is the complete form. Ren slowly moved one of the giant arms. It feels surprisingly natural. Akira quietly observed the flow of chakra. The chakra consumption is incredibly stable. Far lower than I expected. Kaien looked toward the wings. Let's test them. Without another word, 5 pairs of gigantic wings spread open. Boom. The air exploded. The 5 complete body Susanoo slowly rose into the sky. For the first time in their lives, the 5 Uchihas flew. No birds, no summoning beasts, no special techniques, only the power of their own Susanoo. They flew across the endless ocean, sometimes racing each other, sometimes hovering above the clouds, sometimes simply enjoying the feeling of flying freely. For nearly an hour, the 5 forgot about research, forgot about dungeons, forgot about the ninja world. They simply enjoyed the freedom they had earned through years of effort. As the sun began to set, they dismissed their Susanoo. The coastline returned to silence. No traces remained except several enormous footprints near the shore. By evening, the 5 were back at their hidden mountain. A kettle of tea rested on the wooden table overlooking the valley. The atmosphere was peaceful. No one spoke for a long time. They simply watched the sunset together while quietly drinking tea. Finally, Kaien set down his cup. The celebration is over. The others smiled. They already knew what he meant. Tomorrow, he looked toward the distant mountains where the dungeon entrance usually appeared. We start grinding dungeons again. This time, not to synchronize, not to cure their blindness, but to continue climbing toward heights no shinobi had ever reached. Chapter 26, Experimenting with Susanoo. The following morning, the 5 Uchihas gathered once again in Shun's courtyard. Instead of excitement, their expressions were calm. Kaien opened the dungeon menu and examined the available options. After a few moments, he selected one. Level 18 dungeon. We're no longer synchronizing, Kaien said. From now on, every dungeon is long-term growth. So there's no reason to rush. The others nodded. A pillar of light descended. Moments later, the 5 appeared inside a vast grassland stretching to the horizon. Herds of monster beasts roamed the plains, while flying monsters circled high above. Daichi smiled. Looks like breakfast has arrived. Kaien stopped him. Not yet. We're not here to clear the dungeon as quickly as possible. We're here to experiment. The others immediately understood. The discussion from yesterday evening resurfaced in their minds. Akira had asked a simple but brilliant question. If the complete body Susanoo can manifest wings, can we manifest only the wings? Or only the arms? Or only the weapon? The question completely changed their perspective. Until now, they had always summoned the entire Susanoo. No one had considered separating its individual parts. Kaien quickly assigned everyone's task. Akira, continue researching the wings. We need true aerial control. Akira nodded. Understood. Kaien, you'll work with him. My sealing techniques may help stabilize partial manifestations. Kaien agreed. He and Akira immediately walked toward a nearby cliff. Ren looked at Shun. The two of us. Shun smiled as he drew his black blade. We'll try to manifest only the Susanoo blade. If we can fuse it with our swords, our cutting power should increase tremendously. Ren grinned. I like that idea. Meanwhile, Daichi cracked his knuckles. What about me? Kaien pointed toward the endless monster horde. You wanted a hammer. Figure out how to manifest only your Susanoo weapon. And if possible, manifest only the skeletal arms. Daichi laughed loudly. So I can smash monsters without summoning the whole Susanoo. Exactly. Without another word, the experiments began. On the cliff, Akira repeatedly summoned only the chakra around his back. Again, and again, every attempt failed. Sometimes half a rib cage appeared. Sometimes an incomplete shoulder. Once, an entire Susanoo head appeared instead of wings. Akira sighed. Wrong again. Kaien calmly observed every failure. Don't force the wings. Imagine only the function. Flight, not the form. Akira nodded and began again. Elsewhere, Ren held his katana before him. His eternal Mangekyo spun. A gigantic Susanoo sword began materializing. Then, it shattered. Shun's black blade suffered the same fate. The chakra disperses too quickly, Ren muttered. Shun thought for a moment. We're trying to create a giant sword. Perhaps, we should think of coating our own swords instead. The two immediately changed their approach. This time, a thin layer of blue chakra slowly wrapped around their blades. Neither of them smiled, but they both knew. They were closer than before. Several hundred meters away, Daichi had the simplest research method. Trial and error. A massive skeletal arm suddenly appeared beside him. It lasted only 2 seconds before disappearing. He scratched his head. Too much chakra. Another attempt. This time, the arm remained. A gigantic skeletal hammer began forming in its hand. Daichi's eyes lit up. It worked. He charged straight into a herd of horned monsters. Boom. The skeletal arm swung once. More than 20 monsters exploded instantly. The arm disappeared immediately afterward. Daichi burst into laughter. I've got something. Hours passed. The dungeon echoed not with battle cries, but with discussions, theory, failure, improvement. Every time one of them discovered something new, the others immediately gathered to observe. Whoever mastered a technique first would explain the method to the remaining 4. That had always been their rule. Knowledge belonged to everyone, not just its creator. As the sun slowly moved across the artificial sky of the dungeon, the 5 hidden Uchihas realized something. The dungeon wasn't merely a place to gain levels. It had become the perfect laboratory. Chapter 27, The First Breakthrough. Several hours passed. The level 18 dungeon was no longer a battlefield. It had become a giant research laboratory. The monsters had become experimental subjects. Every few minutes, another group of monsters wandered into the area. Then they were quickly eliminated before the experiments continued. Shun and Ren remained focused on their swords. Again, and again, they coated their blades with Susanoo chakra. Each attempt lasted a little longer than the previous one. The blue chakra surrounding the swords gradually became denser. But it still wasn't enough. It keeps collapsing. Ren frowned. Shun nodded. We're forcing the entire Susanoo blade into our swords. The scale is wrong. Think smaller. Think of it as extending the sword, not replacing it. Ren silently began another attempt. Several hundred meters away, Daichi was having far more success. A gigantic skeletal arm suddenly materialized beside him. Unlike before, it remained stable. Its fingers slowly closed into a fist. Daichi laughed. It stayed. Moments later, a massive skeletal hammer appeared inside its hand. The hammer wasn't complete. Only its head had formed. But it was enough. A charging rhinoceros monster rushed toward him. Daichi smiled. Perfect timing. The skeletal arm swung downward. Boom. The monster disappeared beneath the impact. Nothing remained except a crater. The hammer only lasted 3 seconds before dissolving. Even so, Daichi wasn't disappointed. I've got the idea. It just needs more stability. On the cliff, Akira and Kaien remained completely still. Neither had spoken for nearly half an hour. Suddenly, a pair of enormous blue wings unfolded behind Akira. Not an entire Susanoo. Not a rib cage. Only the wings. For 2 seconds, they remained perfectly stable. Akira instinctively leapt. The wings flapped once. He remained suspended in the air. Then they vanished. He landed safely. Silence. Kaien looked at him. You flew. Akira slowly nodded. Only for 2 seconds. But it worked. Instead of celebrating, both immediately began analyzing why it had worked. Kaien drew several diagrams on the ground. I think we're approaching it incorrectly. The wings aren't independent. They need an anchor. Akira looked thoughtful. An anchor. Kaien pointed toward Akira's back. Your spine. The complete body Susanoo connects the wings to the spine. If we recreate only that connection, we shouldn't need the rest of the body. Akira's eyes brightened. That makes sense. He immediately tried again. This time, a thin skeletal spine appeared behind him. Then, the wings. Unlike before, they remained stable. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. Akira slowly rose into the sky. He wasn't fast. He wasn't graceful. But he was flying. Kaien smiled faintly. We found it. Akira landed moments later. The skeletal spine acts as the foundation. Without it, the wings collapse. Kaien nodded. We'll teach the others tonight. As evening approached, the 5 gathered together once more. Daichi proudly demonstrated his skeletal arm and hammer. It lasts 5 seconds now. Ren laughed. I finally managed to keep the blade stable. He swung his sword. A translucent Susanoo blade extended nearly 3 meters beyond its tip. With a single slash, a distant monster was cut cleanly in half. Shun smiled. My black blade works the same way. The extension consumes less chakra than summoning the full Susanoo. Finally, Akira demonstrated the wings. A skeletal spine appeared behind him. Then, a magnificent pair of blue Susanoo wings unfolded. He flew in a circle above the group before landing smoothly. Daichi stared for several seconds. Then he burst into laughter. So that's the trick. Akira nodded. Every partial Susanoo needs a foundation. The wings need a spine. The arm needs a shoulder. The blade needs a hilt. We were trying to manifest the visible parts, when we should have been manifesting the connection. Shun smiled. As expected, the first person to solve it explains it to everyone else. That night, the other 4 immediately began practicing Akira's method. Within a few hours, all 5 had successfully manifested partial Susanoo techniques. Their research had taken another step forward. And for the first time, they had begun to break Susanoo apart. Not as a single technique, but as countless individual techniques waiting to be mastered. Chapter 28, a long battle after an entire day of experimentation. The 5 Uchihas finally decided to finish the dungeon. Kaien looked toward the center of the grassland. We've gathered enough data. It's time to clear the dungeon. The others nodded. Throughout the day, they had intentionally avoided the dungeon boss. Now, there was no reason to wait. The 5 headed toward the center of the level 18 dungeon. As they approached, the earth began to tremble. A deep roar echoed across the endless plains. The clouds darkened. Then, a gigantic monster slowly emerged. It resembled a heavily armored centaur nearly 30 meters tall. Its upper body was that of a warrior clad in black armor. Its lower body resembled a massive horse covered in dark scales. In one hand, it held an enormous war hammer. In the other, a tower shield larger than most houses. A blue notification appeared. Dungeon Boss Black War Centaur Level 18 Boss. Daichi smiled. Finally, a worthy opponent. The boss charged. Its speed completely exceeded every previous dungeon boss they had fought. Boom. The impact of its first strike shattered the ground for hundreds of meters. Daichi blocked it with his skeletal arm. The arm exploded instantly. Daichi was forced backward. He laughed instead of becoming angry. So this is a level 18 boss. It can actually break my new technique. The battle immediately became intense. Unlike previous bosses, this one couldn't be defeated in minutes. Every attack forced them to work together. Ren and Shun continuously attacked from both sides, their Susanoo-coated blades leaving deep cuts across the boss's armor. Akira remained in the air using his newly perfected wings, constantly distracting the boss while searching for weaknesses. Kaien's sealing chains repeatedly restricted its movements, creating openings for the others. Daichi fought head-on, exchanging blow after blow with the giant monster. The battle continued. 30 minutes. 1 hour. Neither side showed signs of stopping. The boss adapted surprisingly quickly. Whenever one strategy succeeded, it immediately changed its fighting style. Kaien smiled. This is good. It's forcing us to improve. Nearly 2 hours after the battle began, the boss finally slowed. Its armor was covered with cracks. Its movements became sluggish. Kaien raised his hand. Together, without another word, the 5 attacked simultaneously. Ren and Shun severed both arms. Akira's chakra threads restrained the boss's body. Kaien's sealing chains locked its legs in place. Daichi appeared directly in front of it. His skeletal hammer had finally stabilized. He swung it with everything he had. Boom! The Black War Centaur's chest collapsed inward. A second later, its entire body shattered into countless particles of light. The dungeon fell silent. Blue notifications appeared before the 5. Dungeon cleared. Boss defeated. Experience gained. They immediately opened their status panels. Silence. Ren blinked. No level. Everyone looked again. Level 18. Their level hadn't changed. However, a thin blue bar beneath the level had moved forward slightly. Level 18 experience, 9%. Daichi scratched his head. So even after fighting for 2 hours, we only gained this much. Kaien nodded calmly. It makes sense. We've entered the stage of true growth. Our strength is already beyond ordinary cage level shinobi. The stronger we become, the harder every level will be to obtain. Shun smiled faintly. The system isn't giving us free power anymore. It's making us earn every step. Akira closed his status panel. Then we'll simply keep climbing. No matter how long it takes. The other 4 nodded. Their first level 18 dungeon had taught them an important lesson. From this point onward, every single level would be hard-earned. Chapter 29, Twin Bosses. 1 month passed. Every day followed the same routine. Enter a dungeon. Clear every monster. Defeat the boss. Return home. Rest. Research. Repeat. Their lives became incredibly simple. Yet, their strength steadily increased. After an entire month of grinding, the 5 Uchihas had finally reached level 19. Their experience bar was almost full. Level 19. Experience, 93%. Looking at the nearly full experience bar, Daichi laughed. One more dungeon, and we finally reach level 20. Ren smiled. I wonder if level 20 unlocks something new. Shun shrugged. We'll find out soon enough. Kaien had already selected today's dungeon. A level 19 dungeon. The familiar pillars of light descended. Moments later, the 5 appeared inside a vast canyon filled with towering stone pillars. Like always, they spent the entire day clearing monsters while continuing their Susanoo research. By evening, only the dungeon boss remained. Kaien looked toward the deepest part of the canyon. Let's finish it. The 5 walked forward. Suddenly, the canyon shook violently. Boom, boom. 2 enormous presences erupted simultaneously. The 5 immediately stopped. Daichi frowned. 2. Dust slowly settled. Standing before them, were not 1, but 2 dungeon bosses. The first resembled a gigantic silver wolf nearly 25 meters long. Its entire body crackled with blue lightning. The second was an enormous black tiger covered in crimson flames. The 2 beasts stood side by side. Blue notifications appeared. Dungeon Boss. Thunder Wolf King. Dungeon Boss. Inferno Tiger King. Silence. For the first time since obtaining the dungeon leveling system, the 5 were facing 2 bosses at the same time. Ren slowly drew his sword. So, the dungeon finally changed the rules. Akira carefully observed both monsters. They aren't fighting each other. They're cooperating. Kaien nodded. That makes this much more dangerous. One specializes in speed, the other in overwhelming power. Shun smiled faintly. Looks like the system has decided one boss isn't enough for us anymore. Daichi cracked his neck. A grin slowly spread across his face. Good. I was beginning to think every boss would end the same way. The Thunder Wolf suddenly disappeared. At the exact same moment, the Inferno Tiger opened its mouth. A sea of crimson flames engulfed the battlefield. Kaien reacted instantly. Formation 5. Without another word, the 5 hidden Uchihas split apart. Their most difficult dungeon battle had just begun. Chapter 30, the strongest battle yet. The Thunder Wolf King vanished. A blue streak flashed across the canyon. At the same moment, the Inferno Tiger King unleashed a sea of crimson flames that swallowed the battlefield. Boom! The explosion echoed throughout the entire canyon. Fortunately, the 5 Uchihas had already moved. Kaien's voice rang out. Separate them. They're covering each other's weaknesses. Everyone immediately understood. If they continued fighting together, the wolf's speed and the tiger's destructive power would create endless openings. Akira spread his partial Susanoo wings and shot into the sky. From above, countless chakra threads descended. The Thunder Wolf dodged them effortlessly. Exactly as Kaien expected. Kaien smiled. So you prefer moving? Good. He slammed both hands onto the ground. Dozens of sealing arrays spread across the battlefield. The Thunder Wolf was forced into a much smaller area. Meanwhile, Daichi rushed directly toward the Inferno Tiger. The enormous beast welcomed him with another torrent of flames. Daichi didn't dodge. A skeletal arm appeared beside him. Its gigantic hammer smashed straight through the flames. Boom! The fire scattered in every direction. The tiger counterattacked immediately. Its massive claws collided with Daichi's skeletal arm. Crack! The arm shattered. Daichi was sent flying hundreds of meters. He rolled across the ground before standing again. Instead of looking frustrated, he laughed. So you're stronger than the centaur. This is getting interesting. Elsewhere, Ren and Shun had already caught up to the Thunder Wolf. Its speed exceeded anything they had fought before. Every time they swung their swords, only an afterimage remained. Ren smiled. I can't hit it. Shun calmly replied. Then don't chase it. Predict it. The two closed their Sharingan for a brief moment. Then reopened them. The eternal Mangekyo spun slowly. Instead of watching the wolf, they began reading its muscle movements. Its breathing. Its rhythm. Its intentions. The next time the Thunder Wolf charged, neither of them moved. At the final instant, both swords swung together. Slash! A deep wound appeared across the wolf's shoulder. The beast howled in pain. Ren smiled. Found you. The battle continued. 1 hour. Then another. Neither boss showed signs of collapsing. Neither did the 5 Uchihas. Every minute, they adapted. Every exchange, they improved. Akira perfected his aerial movement. Daichi stabilized his skeletal hammer. Ren and Shun synchronized their swordsmanship even further. Kyan continuously adjusted the battlefield with new sealing arrays. Finally, nearly 3 hours after the battle began, Kyan noticed a pattern. He immediately shouted. The wolf always attacks half a second before the tiger. Use that. Everyone reacted instantly. Ren and Shun deliberately exposed an opening. The Thunder Wolf charged without hesitation. Exactly half a second later, the Inferno Tiger lunged as well. It was the same combination they had used dozens of times. But this time, it was a trap. Kyan's sealing arrays erupted beneath both bosses simultaneously. Akira's chakra threads bound the wolf for a single second. That single second was enough. Daichi's skeletal hammer descended upon the Inferno Tiger. Boom! The tiger crashed into the trapped wolf. Before either could recover, Ren and Shun crossed paths. 4 sword strikes flashed almost simultaneously. The Thunder Wolf's head separated from its body. The Inferno Tiger's heart was pierced. For several seconds, neither monster moved. Then, both enormous bodies dissolved into countless particles of light. The canyon became silent. Blue notifications appeared before all 5. Dungeon cleared. Twin bosses defeated. Level up. Level 20. The 5 immediately felt another wave of strength surge through their bodies. Ren smiled. We finally reached level 20. Daichi stretched happily. That took an entire month. Kyan nodded. And every level after this will probably take even longer. Shun wasn't looking at his level. His eyes were fixed on a new notification that had appeared beneath it. Congratulations. Level 20 reached. A new feature will be unlocked after returning. Shun smiled faintly. It seems, the system has another surprise waiting for us. Chapter 31, the level 20 reward. The familiar pillar of light transported the 5 Uchihas back to their hidden mountain. Unlike previous dungeon runs, no one spoke. Their attention remained fixed on the system notifications. The moment they returned, 5 identical blue screens appeared. Congratulations. Level 20 reached. New system feature unlocked. Daichi immediately grinned. I knew something would happen. Shun opened the management interface. Several new options had become available. Most were still locked. Only one new option was glowing. Dungeon Records. Shun selected it. A new screen appeared. Dungeon Records. You have mastered the following dungeons. Level 10. Level 13. Level 18. Level 19. Below that, another line slowly appeared. Dungeon Fusion. Status. Unlocked. Akira raised an eyebrow. Dungeon Fusion. Shun opened the description. Dungeon Fusion. Combined previously cleared dungeons to create a stronger customized dungeon. Difficulty, rewards, and experience increase according to the selected combination. Silence filled the room. Ren slowly smiled. So, we don't have to wait for stronger dungeons anymore. Kyan nodded. We can create our own. Akira immediately understood the research value. We can also combine different monster types. Flying monsters, ground monsters, boss combinations, perfect training environments. Daichi laughed. So we can make our own hell. Shun smiled. It seems the system is encouraging us to challenge ourselves. Kyan folded his arms. But not today. Everyone looked at him. We just fought 2 bosses for nearly 3 hours. We'll study this function first. Then decide how to use it. The others nodded. That was always their style. Never rush into an unknown system. Later that evening, the five gathered around the familiar wooden table overlooking the valley. Tea rested quietly in their cups. Shun looked toward the sunset. It has only been a few months since we obtained the system. Ren smiled. Yet it feels like years. Daichi laughed. We've already gone blind, found a cure, learned to fly, and reached level 20. Akira calmly added. And we're still only at the beginning. Kaien took a sip of tea before speaking. The system rewards combat. Our research rewards understanding. When the two are combined, our growth becomes much faster than either path alone. Shun nodded. That was probably the reason we received the system. Not because we're the strongest, but because we never stop researching. A peaceful silence settled over the hidden mountain. Far away, the Third Shinobi World War was nearing its end. Minato Namikaze had yet to become Hokage. The Nine Tails attack was still years away. The ninja world continued exactly as history remembered it. Hidden from everyone, 5 forgotten Uchihas continued walking a path that no shinobi had ever imagined. And tomorrow, they would begin experimenting with dungeon fusion. Chapter 32, The Criteria. The evening breeze drifted through the hidden mountain. The 5 Uchihas sat around the familiar wooden table, quietly drinking tea while discussing the newly unlocked Monster Horde dungeon. Suddenly, a small golden portal opened in the air. The familiar husky wearing a black business suit stepped out. Unlike the last time, he looked completely relaxed. No piles of paperwork, no tired expression. He stretched lazily before jumping onto an empty chair. Finally, I'm free today. He picked up a teacup without asking. Taking a sip, he smiled. So, ask me anything you want. For today only. The 5 looked at each other. Daichi was the first to open his mouth. Shun, however, spoke before he could. Why did you choose me as the host? The husky looked at him for a moment. Then he answered simply. I chose you because your personality completely matches the type of host I need. Shun nodded. So, there was no prophecy, no fate, no chosen one. The husky nearly spat out his tea. Then he burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, host, I never thought you'd believe in something that ridiculous. He waved a paw dismissively. Fate, prophecies, the chosen one, they're usually nothing more than some old monster deciding your future for you. They choose a person, arrange everything, and later call it destiny. He looked directly at Shun. I hate those things. If someone walks a path, it should be because they chose it, not because someone else wrote it for them. Shun smiled faintly. I only wanted confirmation. The husky nodded. Good. Kaien placed his teacup down. Then why were the 5 of us chosen as users? The husky answered without hesitation. Simple. I'm a system. I need a host to survive for a long time. It's no different from humans needing air. I don't need the strongest host. I need one who will stay alive. If my host dies every year, I have to keep searching for another. What a waste of time. He pointed toward Shun. So I chose him. Then he looked at all 5 of them. And before any of you become arrogant, compared to the truly powerful beings in existence, you're not even dust. The 5 remained silent. The husky continued. If you want proof, ask your host. He knows better than anyone how terrifying truly powerful people can become. Shun silently remembered the cultivation novels from his previous life. Compared to immortals capable of destroying stars, their current strength was indeed insignificant. The husky continued. As for the 4 of you, he pointed around the table. My dungeons require teams. I didn't want a useless host surrounded by useless teammates. So I made the 5 of you one team. Ren smiled. So we were selected because we're useful. Partly. The husky nodded. But there's another reason. Your personalities also fit my selection criteria. He looked toward each of them. Researchers. People who don't rely solely on talent. People who question everything. People who improve themselves. Finally, his eyes stopped on Daichi. Quote. Even you. Daichi pointed at himself. Me. The husky sighed dramatically. Yes, you may look like an idiot. But compared to most people you know, you understand one very important rule. What rule? Daichi asked. The husky grinned. Showing off means death. Daichi laughed loudly. That's true. The husky nodded. My preferred candidates are usually reincarnated or reborn people. They've already seen one life. They tend to think before acting. He looked toward the other 4. But honestly, if Shun had never existed, the 4 of you would all have been near the top of my candidate list. The 5 exchanged surprised glances. The husky casually shrugged. And if my host dies because of his own foolishness, I can easily promote any one of you to become the next host. Shun raised an eyebrow. So the host isn't irreplaceable? No, the position isn't. The person is. The husky smiled mischievously. So from my perspective, You 5 are excellent users. Why would I throw away such useful thugs? He suddenly coughed into his paw. I mean, users. He paused for a moment, then added casually, that's why you 4 can use the extra functions. Although there's only one extra function for now, talking to me. You have the same privileges as the host. Even without becoming one. For a second, silence filled the courtyard. Then all 5 burst into laughter. Even Kyan couldn't stop himself from smiling. The husky calmly sipped his tea as if he hadn't said anything strange at all. Chapter 33. What does a system do? The laughter from the previous question slowly died down. Daichi finally raised his hand. Can I ask my question now? The husky rolled his eyes. You've been trying to ask it since I arrived. Go ahead. Daichi leaned forward. Do you have more users? How many? The husky casually took another sip of tea. Many. Then he corrected himself. Actually, I have many worlds full of users. The 5 froze. Many worlds. Ren repeated. The husky nodded. Every world has different needs. In some worlds, I'm known as a mission hall. In others, I'm an advancement trial. Sometimes, I'm simply called a dungeon system. He shrugged. I've also partnered with many chat systems. They don't have dungeons of their own. So they rent mine. Shun blinked. Rent. The husky nodded as though it were the most normal thing in existence. They send their users. I provide the dungeons. Everyone benefits. Ren couldn't help asking another question. Then, how do you earn money? For the first time, the husky became silent. Several moments later, he finally answered. I accept requests. From the will of worlds. The 5 became serious. The husky continued. Sometimes a world's ecosystem is on the verge of collapse. The cause varies. Monsters, demons, aliens. He paused briefly. And sometimes, humans. No one interrupted him. When that happens, the worlds will hire me. I use my authority to transform the infected regions into dungeons. He pointed toward the sky. The dungeons you enter, they aren't fake. They're real places. They're simply separated from the original world. Akira frowned. So the monsters are real. Of course. The husky nodded. If they weren't, where would your experience come from? He continued. My level system divides the world into countless regions. Each region becomes a dungeon. No single user clears an entire world. That would be absurd. Instead, thousands, sometimes millions, of users clear different regions simultaneously. He smiled. When everyone finishes, the world's ecosystem has recovered. The monsters are gone. The demonic invasion is over. The alien infestation disappears. Or, the dangerous humans have been eliminated. Kyan folded his arms. So, you're basically a cleanup company. The husky grinned. Exactly. I'm a very expensive cleanup company. Ren asked. And after the job is finished, the worlds will pay me. The husky casually tossed a gold coin onto the table. It spun several times before stopping. The gold coins you receive, they're only a tiny portion of my payment. I keep most of it. You get your share. The worlds will get a restored ecosystem. And I get paid. Daichi stared at him. So, this is actually a business. The husky smiled proudly. The oldest business in existence. Shun looked at him thoughtfully. So your dungeons aren't created for entertainment. They're created to solve problems. The husky nodded. Exactly. For you, they're training grounds. For me, they're contracts. He finished the last sip of his tea before standing up. And fortunately for all of you, your world hasn't hired me. The 5 exchanged confused glances. Ren frowned. What do you mean? The husky looked at them calmly. Your world is too weak. It can't even afford to pay me. For the first time that evening, none of the 5 laughed. The atmosphere around the table became unusually quiet. Chapter 34. How weak is our world? Silence lingered after the husky's last sentence. Your world is too weak. It can't even afford to pay me. The 5 looked at one another. For the first time since obtaining the system, they realized just how insignificant their world might be. Shun broke the silence. What do you mean by, too weak? The husky remained seated in his chair, casually leaning back. A world's will isn't all powerful. It has resources. It has limits. It earns. And it spends. He pointed toward the sky. The stronger a world becomes, the richer its worlds will become. The richer it becomes, the more powerful beings it can nurture. Akira frowned. So, it's like an economy. The husky snapped his fingers. Exactly. Worlds have economies too. Not the kind you use. But the principle is the same. Kyan folded his arms. So if a powerful world suffers a monster invasion, it can simply hire you. The husky nodded. I solved the problem. The worlds will pay. Everyone is satisfied. Ren tilted his head. What about weak worlds? The husky smiled helplessly. They solve their own problems. If they fail, they disappear. No one spoke. The answer was brutally simple. Daichi scratched his head. So, if our world faced an invasion powerful enough to require your help, we'd be finished. The husky shrugged slightly in his seat. Unless someone solved it first. Yes. Shun looked thoughtful. How many levels are there? The husky laughed. Host, you've finally asked a useful question. He raised one paw. The system has no highest level. The numbers continue. As long as someone can keep growing, the level continues. Ren blinked. So, level 1000 exists. It does. Level 10,000. It exists. Daichi laughed nervously. You're joking. The husky looked completely serious. I've personally met users whose levels had more digits than you have fingers. Silence. Kyan asked another question. Then, at level 20, where do we stand? The husky answered honestly. In your world, you could already be considered among the strongest. He paused. But in the greater universe. He held up a single strand of fur. You're about this significant. The five could only smile bitterly. They had expected that answer. Shun looked toward the distant mountains. So, we've only just left the starting line. The husky nodded approvingly from his chair. Exactly. That's why I like you. Most people become arrogant after gaining a little strength. You five immediately ask how much farther there is to go. He remained seated, stretching slightly where he sat. Good. Keep thinking like that. Arrogant users usually don't live very long. Daichi suddenly grinned. Then we'll just become strong enough that even you call us monsters. The husky laughed. I'll be looking forward to that day. He casually waved a paw. Oh, one piece of free advice. The five looked at him. When you eventually leave your world, don't tell anyone you're from a level 20 world. Ren frowned. Why? The husky smiled mischievously. Because in some places, that would be the same as hanging a sign around your neck saying, easy prey. The five Uchihas remained beneath the quiet evening sky. None of them spoke. They simply looked at the stars above. For the first time, the universe felt far larger than they had ever imagined. Chapter 36, The Internship. The husky remained standing on the table, still thinking about Akira's proposal. The courtyard was quiet. Only the sound of the evening wind could be heard. Kyan suddenly spoke. What if we don't manage your high-level users? The husky looked toward him. Kyan continued calmly. We could start with low-level users. Like the people in the ninja world. We gain experience. You reduce your workload. If we fail, the damage is limited. The husky's ears twitched. He slowly nodded. That's actually a reasonable suggestion. He thought for several moments before speaking again. I trust your personalities. I trust your judgment. But trust alone isn't enough. I need tangible proof. I need evidence that you can actually manage users. He pointed a paw toward Shun. That's why I already unlocked the management function. The five looked at one another. The husky continued. You can now invite people to become users. They'll receive the same basic system. They'll have dungeons. They'll level up. They'll gain access to the shop. They'll have almost every function you have. Ren blinked. Almost. The husky nodded. They won't have authority over the system itself. And, he looked at the five seriously. Every user you recruit becomes your responsibility. If they abuse the system, you deal with it. If they create problems, you solve them. If they die because of your poor management, that responsibility is yours. The atmosphere immediately became much more serious. This wasn't simply recruiting teammates. It was taking responsibility for other people's lives. Shun thought for a moment before asking, can you modify one function? The husky tilted his head. What function? Shun answered calmly. If a user recruited by us gains experience, can 30% of that experience be transferred to us, and then equally divided among the five of us? The husky frowned. Why? Shun smiled. Because then our goals align. We'll gain practical experience managing users. They'll continue becoming stronger. And while helping them grow, we'll also slowly improve our own levels. Akira nodded. It also gives us a measurable way to judge whether our management methods are effective. The husky remained silent. He seemed to be calculating something. Several seconds later, he smiled. It won't affect the users too much. They'll still receive 70% of the experience. And 30% being divided among 5 people means each of you only receives 6%. He nodded. That's acceptable. I'll modify the rules. A blue notification immediately appeared before the 5. Management function updated. Subordinate users unlocked. Subordinate experience tax, 30%. Distribution, equal among managers. Daichi whistled. So we're becoming supervisors already. Kyan shook his head. Not supervisors. Apprentice managers. He looked toward the others. We also need to continue improving ourselves. If all we do is manage others, our own combat instincts will dull. He looked back at the husky. My suggestion, one day every week, we enter the monster horde dungeon ourselves. We'll keep fighting, we'll keep researching, our combat skills won't become rusty. The husky smiled broadly. Perfect. That's exactly what experienced managers do. They never stop improving themselves. He looked proudly at the 5 Uchihas. I think, I've just found my first group of interns. Daichi frowned. Interns. The husky nodded shamelessly. Of course, you haven't even managed one user yet. You still need training. Ren laughed. So we're unpaid interns. The husky coughed awkwardly. Well, you are getting 30% of your subordinates' experience. That's technically a salary. The 5 looked at each other. Then burst into laughter. Even Kaien smiled. Tomorrow, they would no longer be only dungeon explorers. For the first time, they would become managers responsible for guiding the next generation of users. Chapter 37, A Spectator on Vacation. The next morning, the 5 Uchihas gathered before the dungeon gate. Today wasn't an ordinary dungeon run. It was their scheduled training day inside the Monster Horde dungeon. Kaien looked at everyone. Same formation as always. We're not rushing. We're here to improve our endurance and teamwork. The others nodded. Shun selected the special dungeon. A pillar of light descended. Just as the 5 were about to be teleported, a golden portal suddenly opened beside them. The familiar husky, still wearing his business suit, walked out while carrying a beach chair, a large umbrella, and a bag of snacks. The 5 stared at him. The husky looked back. What? Ren blinked. You're coming with us. The husky nodded matter-of-factly. I'm on vacation. I finally have one free week. I've already finished all my paperwork. He unfolded the beach chair. So, I'm just here to watch. Daichi laughed. You really take your vacation seriously. Of course. The husky adjusted his sunglasses. I've watched countless users over the years. But very few fights are actually entertaining. You 5 are entertaining. The teleportation activated. Moments later, all 6 arrived inside the Monster Horde dungeon. The scenery stretched endlessly. An enormous plain reached the horizon. There wasn't a single mountain. No forest. No rivers. Only endless grassland. And monsters. Thousands. No. Hundreds of thousands of monsters filled the landscape. They covered the earth like an endless black ocean. Even the 5 paused for a moment. Daichi smiled. Now that's a proper battlefield. The husky calmly walked to a nearby hill. He unfolded his chair, placed the umbrella beside it, opened a bag of chips, then sat down comfortably. I'm only a spectator today. I won't interfere. I won't give advice. I won't save you. He pointed a potato chip toward the battlefield. Fight. The 5 looked at each other before smiling. Kaien drew a line on the ground with his foot. Formation Alpha. Maintain rotation. Don't chase too far. Our objective isn't to kill everything. Our objective is to survive while maintaining maximum efficiency. Everyone nodded. The horde noticed them. A deafening roar echoed across the plain. The endless sea of monsters began charging. The ground trembled violently. Dust rose into the sky. From his chair, the husky casually took another bite of his chips. Excellent. I've got front row seats. Boom. The first wave collided with the 5 Uchihas. Susanoo blades flashed. Sealing chains erupted from the ground. Chakra threads sliced through hundreds of monsters. Daichi's skeletal hammer crushed everything in its path. The battle began immediately. From the hilltop, the husky watched with obvious enjoyment. Much better than paperwork. He leaned back comfortably. What a wonderful vacation. Chapter 38, Endless Waves. The battlefield had become a sea of blood. Monsters continued charging from every direction. There was no boss, no commander, only endless instinct. Kill, devour, advance. The 5 Uchihas stood back to back in their formation. Unlike ordinary dungeons, there was no opportunity to rest. The moment one wave fell, another immediately replaced it. Kaien calmly issued commands. Left flank. Ren disappeared. His Susanoo-coated sword left a crescent of blue light. One slash. Hundreds of monsters were cut apart. Before the corpses even touched the ground, another wave had already arrived. Akira spread his skeletal wings. He rose into the sky. Thousands of chakra threads descended like rain. Each thread sliced through dozens of monsters. The battlefield beneath him instantly became a field of corpses. Shun's black blade moved with perfect precision. Every swing conserved chakra. Every step was calculated. He wasn't trying to kill the most monsters. He was trying to waste the least energy. Daichi was the complete opposite. Ha ha ha. He charged directly into the largest concentration of monsters. His skeletal hammer expanded to nearly 20 meters. Boom. One swing flattened hundreds of monsters. Boom. A second swing sent dozens flying into the air. Some monsters tried climbing onto his skeletal arm. Daichi simply laughed. Wrong choice. His chakra exploded. The monsters were blown apart instantly. Hours passed. The number of corpses became impossible to count. Yet, the monster horde never seemed to decrease. From his hilltop, the husky calmly ate popcorn. This really is more entertaining than paperwork. He occasionally took notes in a small notebook. Excellent formation. Good chakra control. Daichi still wastes too much movement. Akira's aerial support has improved. He nodded to himself. They're adapting quickly. After nearly 6 hours, for the first time, the five began showing signs of fatigue. Not because they lacked chakra, but because maintaining perfect concentration for so long was exhausting. Kyan immediately noticed. Formation change. Without hesitation, the five switched positions. Those under the greatest pressure moved toward the center. Those with the most remaining stamina took the outer positions. The transition was flawless. The husky smiled. Interesting. They've started rotating naturally. I didn't even have to teach them. Another 2 hours passed. Finally, the endless stream of monsters began slowing. The five immediately noticed. Ren wiped the blood from his sword. I think we've actually reduced their numbers. Daichi looked toward the horizon. For the first time, he could see grass instead of monsters. A grin spread across his face. We're winning. The husky stood from his chair. He stretched lazily before clapping. Congratulations. The five looked toward him. You've just passed your first management examination. Shun frowned. We were fighting. The husky smiled. Were you? He pointed toward Kyan. One commander. He pointed toward the others. 4 specialists. Continuous communication. Resource management. Fatigue rotation. Role assignment. He laughed. You thought you were fighting monsters. I was watching 5 future managers. The 5 exchanged surprised glances. Kyan slowly smiled. So, the battlefield itself was the test. The husky nodded. Exactly. He looked toward the endless plain, now covered with countless monster corpses. And you passed. For the first time, the 5 realized. The Monster Horde dungeon wasn't designed merely to improve combat. It was designed to teach leadership. Chapter 39, The Real Test. The battlefield had finally become quiet. Countless monster corpses covered the endless plain. The 5 Uchihas sat on the ground, catching their breath. Even with their current strength, fighting for nearly 8 hours without pause had pushed them to their limits. Kyan looked across the battlefield. Then he frowned. Something isn't right. The others turned toward him. I clearly remember selecting the 20 times Monster Horde. He looked at the husky. But this dungeon had at least 70 times the normal number of monsters. The husky smiled awkwardly. You noticed. Kyan folded his arms. So, you interfered. The husky scratched the back of his head. What could I do? You 5 always play it safe. You gather information. You test. You analyze. Then you slowly increase the difficulty. He shrugged. Normally that's the correct approach. But, he pointed toward the battlefield. Only under real pressure does someone's true potential emerge. He looked at the 5 one by one. If I had left the dungeon exactly as you selected it, you would have cleared it comfortably. You wouldn't have needed to rotate positions. You wouldn't have optimized your teamwork. You wouldn't have discovered your limits. Ren smiled bitterly. So, you forced us into a corner. The husky nodded without shame. Exactly. Akira looked at the battlefield. And it worked. Their teamwork had improved dramatically during the battle. Their chakra efficiency had increased. Even their partial Susanoo techniques had become more stable. Daichi stretched his aching shoulders. I hate admitting it, but you're right. If there had only been 20 times the monsters, I would have just smashed everything. Shun smiled faintly. Instead, we had to think. The husky nodded proudly. That's the point. A difficult battle teaches more than 100 easy victories. Kyan remained silent for several moments. Finally he asked, will you interfere again? The husky immediately shook his head. No, this was an exception. I said I was on vacation. I couldn't resist making things a little more interesting. He raised both paws. But don't worry. I'll never interfere again. From now on, every dungeon, every reward, every failure, they'll all be the result of your own decisions. Shun nodded. Good. I'd rather earn our growth honestly. The husky smiled. I expected that answer. He looked toward the mountain of monster corpses stretching to the horizon. Besides, you've already proven what I wanted to see. Kyan raised an eyebrow. What was that? The husky looked at the 5 of them with satisfaction. When overwhelming pressure arrived, none of you abandoned your formation. You trusted each other. You adapted. And not once did anyone think only about saving themselves. He smiled. That's much harder to teach than combat. A gentle breeze passed through the battlefield. The five quietly looked at one another. Without realizing it, the monster horde dungeon hadn't just made them stronger. It had transformed five powerful individuals into a team capable of surviving impossible odds. Chapter 40, 5 Hidden Lunatics. That evening, the five Uchihas sat around the familiar wooden table, quietly drinking tea. The setting sun painted the hidden mountain in shades of orange. The husky was unusually quiet. Instead of joking, he simply watched the five of them. Finally, he spoke. I was looking into the pasts of all five of you. The atmosphere immediately became serious. The husky looked toward the other four. I think the host has already told you that he's a reborn person. And that he knows the original timeline of this world. The four nodded. Shun had revealed that secret shortly after everyone had awakened the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He had briefly explained his previous life. The original history of the ninja world. The Third Shinobi World War. Minato becoming Hokage. The Nine Tails attack. The Uchiha massacre. Everything. The husky continued. When I first met the four of you, I thought you had become the way you were because of the host. I assumed his presence created a butterfly effect. He looked at Shun. A reborn person changing history isn't unusual. So I thought. Your personalities were influenced by him. But then, he shook his head. I checked your pasts. The five listened quietly. And I discovered something interesting. He looked directly at Ren. Before you ever met Shun, you had already begun hiding your talent. Then at Akira, you deliberately acted average in front of both the clan and the village. Then Daichi, you intentionally lost spars against stronger opponents. So no one would pay attention to you. Finally, Kyan, you hid your intelligence from almost everyone. You preferred being overlooked. The husky spread his paws. The strangest part, all of this happened before the host awakened his previous life's memories at 7 years old. Silence filled the courtyard. The husky laughed. So, my original theory was completely wrong. The host didn't influence you. He didn't create you through a butterfly effect. He pointed at the four of them. You people were already hiding yourselves. Just like him. Ren rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. I never liked attention. Akira nodded. Neither did I. Kyan calmly added. Standing out attracts unnecessary trouble. Daichi shrugged. I just wanted a peaceful life. The husky burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. Exactly. He pointed excitedly at all five of them. I thought the host had turned you into lunatics. But no, you four were already planning ridiculous self-harming methods to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. You were already researching your own techniques. You were already trying to become background characters. He wiped a tear from his eye from laughing. You five didn't create each other. You simply found each other. He looked around the table. Five naturally occurring lunatics, who somehow ended up on the same team. Even Kyan couldn't help smiling. Shun sighed. When you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous. The husky nodded enthusiastically. Because it is ridiculous. He leaned back in his chair. So the most logical conclusion is that the four of you also existed in the original timeline. You simply stayed hidden. You never entered the main story. You lived exactly as you wanted. As background characters. Ren smiled. That sounds about right. Akira adjusted his glasses. We never wanted to become heroes. Daichi laughed. Or villains. Kyan calmly finished the sentence. We only wanted the freedom to walk our own path. The husky raised his teacup. To five hidden lunatics. The five looked at one another. Then, they all raised their cups as well. To five hidden lunatics. For the first time in a long while. Laughter echoed throughout the hidden mountain. Far away, the ninja world continued following the story everyone knew. Completely unaware that five people who had never intended to become part of history were quietly becoming powerful enough to rewrite it if they ever wished.